מזמרת טבעות, היא עוד מזמרת. ורגליה הקלות את הקצה ונוטות, אין לה יום ואין לילות, היא עוד מזמרת. היא עוד מזמרת, לי 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 ברן העיר, הרחוב כולו דממה, היא עוד מזמרת, אמרי לי מלך בשירים, מלך בצלילים, אוהבת נא בעיניי, השירים הם כל חיי. מזמרת היא ועוד היא עוד מזמרת. ומזמר השירים נתפזו העננים והשמש שוב עלתה. En la calle donde creciste, los viejos murmuraron, mas ya no son antes de criaturas. Puertas se cerraron, canales se taparon en la calle donde creciste, las personas están cansadas y tú pasarás por aquí. No entenderás de quién tu corazón se quema del fuego del descariño. En la calle donde creciste no se sienten pasos, no hay olor de crías, no hay son de bicicleta. La risa tan sabera descayó la color de las chicas. Solo la solitud es habitante fixa. debates y fiestas. Los minutos que pasan están prisioneros en las argullas de la hora. El tiempo se entesó a mí, el respiro se debilí. En la cara,
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Hope you're all having a great Shabbat. Hope you're all having a restful, and relaxing Shabbat. And let me just get rid of this comment here. And we're going to start the afternoon Torah study. I hope you enjoyed that Sephardi Ladino music by the name of the artist there is, I believe, Mor. Let's get up again. What is it? Mor Karbasi. That's it. Mor Karbasi. So if you're looking for it, you can look up Sephardi Ladino music, or you can look up Mor Karbasi. Okay. So we are in Parashat Tetzaveh. We had an interesting Torah study this morning. We were talking a lot about olive oil and the ancient processes for developing olive oil. We spoke specifically about the significance of these words. I have to share the screen. Let's do that correctly. Stop screen. Share screen. Window. And there we go. It's not doing it. There it is. Okay, and we spoke specifically about these words zach and katit. And although I cannot claim to be an expert on the production of olive oil, I am an expert on eating olive oil. I eat a lot of olive oil. I pretty much only use olive oil for cooking. I never, ever, I won't say never, ever. Sometimes there are processed oils embedded in other foods that I eat, but I don't use any processed oils. I pretty much use olive oil for everything. Once in a while, I'll use coconut oil. Once in a while, I might use sesame oil, but I never, ever, ever use processed oils, ever. And so we learned a lot about olive oil. We learned about the production process. We learned that the Israelites, or specifically, there are no Kohanim yet, really, per se. I mean, the Levites have not yet been installed and chosen. But actually, it does mention up above Aaron and his sons, but they haven't been officially installed yet. So we learned that this shemen zayit, this olive oil, is supposed to be used for the candelabra in the temple. The candelabra is outside the Holy of Holies. It's outside the curtain in which the edut, the Ark of the Testimony, is stored. And we learned that this olive oil is to be zach and katit. Okay, zach, we learned, probably means clear, thin. We learned that when you first press olive oil, it creates a very high quality olive oil, which is light in color and thin, not too thick, and it doesn't have a lot of sediments and impurities. Katit seems to be, we said, looking at a number of different commentaries and looking at how olive oil was produced, seems to be, well, it means beaten or crushed rather than pressed. So it seems to be that there were two ways to process the olive oil. One was to take the olives and press them directly. And another was to take the olives and crush them, and then either afterwards press them, or maybe in the process of crushing them, the olive oil flows out freely. It's not 100% clear. If someone wants to do a doctoral thesis, there's another topic. Already we've mentioned about 10, probably 20 doctoral theses to do. At any rate, so but it would seem that what it means is that the olives are crushed, and before the oil is either flows out naturally or is squeezed out. But katit means crushed as opposed to pressed. Okay, so the bottom line is here that this olive oil that was to be used in the tabernacle and later in the temple is supposed to be top quality olive oil. I mean, the top of the top of the top. As if you were to go into the store and in the United States, let's see, if I were to go into an olive oil store and buy some, top quality olive oil, maybe it would cost $20 or $30 a bottle, something like that. Let's say $20 a bottle. The top stuff, even more top than that, the reserved, private label, small crop, organic, all that stuff, top quality, low acidic percentage olive oil. That's what was to be used. That's the point here. The top level olive oil is to be used in the tabernacle. Then we have the words lahalot ner tamid, literally to raise up a lamp. But that's kind of a strange phraseology. Some of the commentaries didn't really help us out too much. But it would seem lahalot ner literally means raise up a lamp. But it would seem maybe by extension that means to have a fire raise up from the lamp. Biblical Hebrew also often work by extension. There's a specific word for it, and I forgot the word. There's a technical grammatical word to express that thought, but I don't remember what it is offhand. And tamid means all the time. And then we were referred to the first book of Samuel, chapter 3, and we saw that Shmuel, who was dedicated to the temple by his mother Hannah, let the lamps. Well, let's even find the verse here. There's one verse. So it's Samuel 3 here, verse 3. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord, where the ark of God was. So that would seem to imply, this is the Robert Alter translation and commentary refers to this verse. So then we took it as an excuse to learn some Tanakh and learned a bunch of chapter 2. And when we get to chapter 3, we see that apparently the lamp goes out in the middle of the night, and then is not relit. Okay, meaning it's off during the day, it's lit at night when it gets dark, and then perhaps burns out in the middle of the night. That's opposed to the rabbinical concept of a ner tamid. If you go into a synagogue, you'll see this ner tamid. The idea was that the light was always burning, and that doesn't seem to be the case, and Robert Alter brought that as a proof for us. Okay, so that brings us to here, verse 21. We didn't get very far in the morning, but it's okay. We'll try to get a little bit further right now. In the morning time, if you were here, then you know that I'm trying to do a better pronunciation of biblical Hebrew. It's a work in progress. But when I'm doing the more in-depth study in the afternoon, I think I'm not going to try so hard to do that. So for instance, if I were to read this in better biblical Hebrew, again, I'm not perfect. I'm still working on it. It's been work in progress, but it's something I've really tried to pick up my game on lately. But so let's say verse 21 would be be'ohel mu'ed mihutz. I always, the main difference that I've been doing now is I've been reading the kamatz. The kamatz is this little T-looking vowel down here where the cursor is, differently from the patach. That's the main difference I've made. I've always tried to kind of do the biblical Hebrew pronunciation, whatever people think it is, and there are many different opinions. But now I've tried to make a distinction between the patach and the kamatz. This is the patach, this is the kamatz, and also just to be a little bit more careful on the what are called the beged kefet letters, the letters that have two different pronunciations based on whether they have a dot in the middle of them or not. So for instance, this peh here is one of the beged kefet letters, and it has a p. I mean, it has a dot there, so it's a pa. If it didn't have a dot, it'd be fa. Okay, so the new improved Hebrew pronunciation would sound something more like be'ohel mo'ed behus la pa rochet asher al ha qedut ya'aroch oto ahron hu bono me erev ad boker lifnei Yehovah chukat olam b'dorotom me'et b'nei Yisrael. Okay, enough of that. But what I did want to say is in the afternoon study, I'm not going to focus so much on that because I want to focus more on the meanings of the words rather than the pronunciation. And since I'm used to Hebrew through through modern Hebrew, having lived in Israel for many, many years. It throws me off until I get more used to the biblical pronunciation. So I'll try where I can to do the more biblical pronunciation, but if I slip back into the modern Hebrew pronunciation, that's for the purposes of being able to focus more on the meanings of the words rather than the pronunciation. At any rate, so here we are. So באוהל מועד, מחוץ לפרוכת, אשר על העדות, this is verse 21, יערוך אותו אהרון ובניו, מערב עד בוקר. Right, so Aaron and his sons are to take care of. I'll translate it that way. From the evening until the morning, and we spoke about time in the Tanakh, the different ways that the Israelites measured time. Lifnei Yehovah. So it's supposed to be lit from the evening until the morning. Evening is when the sun goes down, so it's basically sundown, and Boker is when the sun comes up. So basically from sundown until sunrise. Okay. Okay, let's move on now to chapter 28. So now we get into the garments for the priests, and I have a maybe I should even play it right now. This is maybe, let me see if it uploaded correctly. Let me see if it uploaded correctly. 1 second here. And there it is. So how would I do this? Let's see, can I open it in a tab? Let me see something. Let me just play with something here. Just give me 1 second here. File. Open file. Desktop. Let's see if this works. I think it's still uploading or downloading or something. Yeah, it's not going to happen quite yet. It's not going to happen quite yet, unfortunately. Okay, so we'll try to check back later, but I have a video from when we visited Timna Park in 2019 of visited a replica of the tabernacle. And if I can play it a little bit later, if I can play it a little bit later, then I will do so. Let me just check one more thing. Chrome, like this. 1 second here. Hide this. Yeah, it's still downloading, so it's not going to be ready quite yet. Hopefully soon. Okay. So let's go on. So we're talking about garments for the priests. And we have here verse 1. This is Exodus 28, verse 1. I hope you're all seeing this. Let me just check. Yes. Exodus chapter 28, verse 1. ואתה הקרב אליך את אהרון אחיך ואת בניו איתו מתוך בני ישראל לכהנו לי. So this is now, if I'm not mistaken, the first mention of Aaron and his sons being the Kohanim. Let me see here. Let's take a look at this. We'll take a look at the instances of Aaron. We'll go to the concordance here. Let me get it in order. It appears 347 times in the Tanakh. And let's see. Aaron, Aaron, this is Exodus. Moshe and Aaron. So this is all the Exodus story. So we know that Aaron was originally chosen by Yehovah to be like a prophet to Moshe before Pharaoh. Moshe was supposed to be the God, the Elohim, and Aaron was supposed to be like his prophet. But where is the first time it's mentioned that Aaron and his sons are going to be the priests? This might be it, as a matter of fact. Let's see. This is all the Exodus story. It's all the Exodus story. It's nowhere, anywhere in the Exodus story. Maybe here. And Moshe Aaron Zot Chukat. Moshe Aaron Laila. Moshe Ken Asu. Let's keep on going. See, it's all the Moshe Aaron. And Kach, take a jar. Hur, let's see here. Kohanim. This is interesting. No, but it's not yet noted that the children of Aaron are going to be the Kohanim. And here we have in Exodus 24:1. So here it says Aaron, Nadav, Avihu. Let's take a look at this for 1 second. The Lord, now 70 the elders of worship. No, still doesn't mention that they're going to be the Kohanim. Yal Moshe Varan, Nadav, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, Hur, Yaroch Oto, Aaron, Abanav. Okay, I think this is it. If I'm not mistaken, let's actually look at the word Kohen and see where that appears. This might be the first time right here. So Kohen appears a lot. For instance, Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, was a Kohen of Midian. But where's the first time it appears in the context of Aaron and his sons? That's the question. So let's take a look for a second and see what we have. Kahan. Oh, this is This is the verb. Well, here the first is 28:1, la kahano, but that's the verb form. Let's see if we get the noun form kohen, where that would appear. Word origin from kohen. Let's take a look here. So it's not in Genesis, right? We can skip all of them. Hold on, let me get down to here. So we can skip all of Genesis because obviously Aaron wasn't even born yet. And once we go into Exodus, so this Exodus 2:16 here, that is referring to Yitro. This is Yitro. Yitro is a Kohen of Midian. Yitro Kohen Midian. Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. So that's referring to all of Israel. That's Exodus 19. So we're already almost up to 28. וגם הכהנים הניגשים. Right. So here it says, so here we have something interesting. Let's look at Exodus 19 for a second. So this is when, this is right before the giving of the 10 Commandments, which is in Exodus 20. And where was it again? That was Exodus 19, 22, 24. So we have here in Exodus 19, if we go to 22, v'gam hakohanim hanigashim el Yehovah yitkadshu pen yifrotz behem. So let's take it back to verse 20. Yered Yehovah al har Sinai el rosh hahar v'yikra Yehovah leMoshe el rosh hahar v'al Moshe. So Moses goes up to the top of Mount Sinai. This is in Exodus 19:20. V'yomer Yehovah el Moshe red ed ba'am. So now God says, Moses, go down before the nation breaks through the fence or goes up onto the nation and onto the mountain, and many people die. And here it mentions the Kohanim who approach Yehovah, basically who are serving Yehovah, should also be sanctified lest God breaks out in fury upon them. Okay, v'yomer Moshe el Yehovah lo yichol ha'am la'alot el har Sinai ki ata adota banu lemor hagbel et har v'kidashto. So Moses says it's not possible because the mountain has been fenced off. Okay, and then it mentions in verse 24, v'yomer elav Yehovah lech red v'alita ata v'Aaron imach v'hakohanim v'ha'am al yersu la'alot el Yehovah pen yifrotz bam. And then Yoah reiterates, go down and prevent the people from going up onto the mountain. But red wa'alita ata v'Aaron imach v'hakohanim v'am. But who should come up? You and Aaron and the Kohanim. So this is interesting. But the Kohanim are not. We don't know who these Kohanim are yet because it has not yet been said that the Kohanim are the sons of Aaron. Okay, it's nowhere been mentioned anywhere, as far as I can see, that Aaron and his children have been chosen as the Kohanim, as the priests of Israel. So that brings us to Exodus 19. It does mention Kohanim, but doesn't mention them as the children of Aaron. Let's go back here for a second. And then the next time Kohanim appears is in Exodus 29. It's already past where we were. So it seems to me, if I'm not mistaken, it seems to me that this is the first mention of Aaron and his children being the Kohanim, being chosen as the Kohanim. Let's add to our little spreadsheet, okay? And I'll just, come on, you move. There we go. Let's add this to our little spreadsheet. So we have a bunch of different things, tabernacle materials we spoke about last week. Let's add another one. So end up having about 100 different, hello, there we go. 100 different tabs by the time we're done. But I'll just call this, notes or interesting things. Interesting things, we'll just call it interesting, okay? So the first thing is, okay, let's leave it at verse. Oh, I forgot, I do it this way. 1 second here. Let's delete this tab. Goodbye. Tabernacle materials, I will duplicate this. I'll rename it. Rename interesting. I'll rename it here, and this will be interesting. Let's spell it. Interesting interesting items in the Torah. Interesting things. Things in the Torah, verse, Hebrew name, so we can get rid of this verse, and description. You put here person, and then description. Can you close the door, please? I know, but just close the door, okay? Okay. Close the door, please. Okay. All right. Let's get rid of this. Goodbye. And description. Okay, so person, get rid of this. Verse, get rid of this. So in verse Exodus 28:1, 28:1, person, this is regarding Aharon. Oops, not that way. Hebrew. Second. We have to go over, where the heck is it? That way. Okay. This goes bye-bye. So Aaron and his sons, Aharon and sons, and description. This seems to be the first mention of Aharon and his sons being chosen as the Kohanim for Israel. Okay. Oh, there we go. So Exodus 28:1. Alrighty. So Bnei Israel lekahanoli Aaron, Nadav, Abihu, Elazar, wa Itamar. Okay. So here is 4 sons. These are all the 4 sons of Aaron. Right. He had 4 sons. These are the 4 sons. We know that Nadav and Avihu will meet an untimely demise, but we'll leave that for later on. But they are chosen as the Kohanim. Okay. So now we're going to make the holy garments for Aaron, your brother. Okay. For honor and for, they usually translate tiferet as glory or something like that. Here they translate it as beauty. Okay. So there's supposed to be these garments that are supposed to be honor and beautiful. Everything in the Beit HaMikdash, everything in the tabernacle, everything in the temple is supposed to be the finest quality, the most beautiful, the finest gold, the finest garments, the finest incense, the finest oil. Right? This is the way that God is honored, right? By having the finest everything in His house. Right? He is the king, and His house is the castle, is the palace. So the palace has to have the finest of everything, better than anything else. Right? It wouldn't be fair otherwise. If a human king, let's say such as David or Solomon, lived in better conditions than God Himself, so to speak, right? In fact, when David says that he wants to build the temple for God, for Yahweh, Yahweh is very, shall we say, touched, and says since I've lived in a tent since the days that the Israelites exited Egypt, and now you've come to me and say that you want to build me a house, right? So Yahweh is very touched, right? This is when David was thinking of building his own palace, and then he basically realizes, well, I have to build a house for Yahweh as well. I can't build my own palace unless Yahweh also has a permanent house to live in. I'm not going to live in a palace while Yahweh lives in a tent. The tent, of course, referring to the tabernacle that had gone around from place to place, and we saw in the book of Samuel, first book of Samuel, at the beginning when we were reading about Samuel, that at that point the tabernacle was in Shiloh, which is kind of north of Jerusalem. Okay, so the finest clothing, and in last week's parsha we discussed a number of materials that would be used to make this fine clothing, and they'll be mentioned again. Okay, ואתה תדבר אל כל חכמי לב אשר מלטיב רוח חוכמה, עשו את בגדי אהרון לקדשו לכהנו לי. So now you will speak to everyone who is wise of heart, חכמי לב, okay? Who I have filled him. So miletiv is I filled him, okay, with ruach chachma, who I've infused into him a spirit of wiseness, a wise spirit. So Yahweh has kind of chosen out certain artisans, right? And some of them will be mentioned by name, of course, like Tzalel. So these artisans are now going to create the various parts of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, and specifically here with the clothes. Okay, asu et bichdei Aaron lekadsho lekahano li. Okay, and make the clothes for Aaron to sanctify him, and so that he may, in order to be a priest to me, or to perform his priestly duties to me. Okay, we're in verse 4. Ela biradim asher ya'asu. So these are the various pieces of clothing that they will do, that these artisans, right? So again, Yehovah is going to fill people with the spirit, right? With the muse, shall we say, right? To create great works of art. And they are going to create these pieces of clothing. Okay, so what are they going to do? They're going to hoshen, ephod, ma'il, tonet, tashpetz, מצנפת ואבנית עשו בגדי קודש של אהרון אחיך לבוניו ולכהנו לי. So we have all these different things: חושן, an ephod, a מעיל, a כתונת, a תשפץ, a מצנפת, and avnet. So what are each of these things? We should examine each one by one. Maybe the best way to do that would be to see if my video is by any chance ready to rock and roll. No, maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. So let's see what we have here. So the first thing is oops, wrong place. So the first thing is a hoshen. So hoshen is translated as a breastplate. Okay, let's just go through the definitions of each one. Okay, it's also going to be called the Choshen HaMishpat, the ephod is, let's see if we can find a picture of it. That's probably the best way. Okay. Maybe it'll have all the garments here. Wearing and composition, origins, extended uses. Oh, this is just ephod. So here's a picture of an ephod. So this ephod is, it says, depicted in yellow. Okay, so it's kind of like, I don't know, a vest, I guess you would call it. Let's see how Robert Alter translates it. He might just leave it as ephod. So let's see. We are in Exodus 28, 4. Exodus 28, 4. Oops. Oops. We're back to Exodus 28, 4. Exodus 28, 4. Yeah, so it just translates as ephod. Okay. So we'll just leave it as ephod then, right? So this is ephod. I'm going to call it a vest. I don't know what else to call it. This here that we see up front, oops. Okay, there we go. The 4 rows, each with 3 stones, that's the choshen. That's the breastplate. Okay. And so let's look at each one. Okay, let's look at choshen. Well, let's start with ephod. Okay, we're in the Wikipedia article for ephod. Let's explore. Let's see what Dr. Wiki has to say to us, and see if that leads us into wanting to explore anything else somewhere within the Tanakh. So, where'd we go? So, Rabbi Wikipedia has to say it was an artifact, object to be revered in ancient Israelite culture. Was closely connected with oracular practices and priestly rituals. In the book of Samuel and book of Chronicles, David is described as wearing an ephod when dancing in the presence of the Ark of the Covenant. One is described as standing in the sanctuary at Nob with a sword behind it. In the book of Exodus and Leviticus, one is described as being created for the high priest to wear as part of the official vestments. Okay. In the Bible, in the context where it is worn, the ephod is usually described as being linen, but did not constitute complete clothing of any kind, as the books of Samuel describe. Oops. Mistake. The book of 1 Chronicles states that David was clothed with a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who bore the ark, and David also wore an ephod of linen. David was wearing a linen ephod. There appears to have been a strong religious and ceremonial implication to wearing an ephod, since the 85 priests at Nob are specifically identified as being the type of people who wore an ephod. Though the Masoretic text here describes them as being linen ephods, 1 Samuel 22:18. The word linen is not present in the Septuagint. Okay, we can skip that. Wearing in composition, a passage in the book of Exodus describes the ephod as an elaborate garment worn by the high priest, and upon which the choshen, or breastplate containing the Urim and Tumim, rested. According to this description, the ephod was woven out of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet threads. We'll get to that in a second. It was made of fine linen and was embroidered with skillful work in gold thread. Gidon is additionally described as creating an ephod made of 17 shekels of gold. It's a pretty heavy ephod. Talmud argues, forget the Talmud. The biblical description, Exodus 28:16, 39:9, continues describing the size of the breastplate, which is affixed to the front of the ephod as a square measuring 1 span by 1 span, stating that it was held together by a girdle and had 2 shoulder straps, which were fastened to the front of the ephod by golden rings, to which the breastplate was attached by golden chains. From this description, it appears to have been something like an apron or skirt with braces, though Rashi argued that it was like a woman's riding girdle. The biblical description also adds that there were 2 engraved gems over the shoulder straps made from shoham. Okay, and the Jewish kings, no, that's okay, skip that. Origins, get that. So besides use as a garment, the ephod was also used for oracular purposes in conjunction with the Urim and Tumim. The books of Samuel imply that whenever Saul, or David wished to question God via oracular methods, they asked a priest for the ephod. Since the oracular process is considered by scholars to have been one of kleromancy, I don't know what that means. Lots, drawing of lots. With the Urim and Tumim being the objects which were drawn as lots, the ephod is considered by scholars to have been some form of container for the Urim and Tumim. To harmonize this with the descriptions of the ephod as a garment, it is necessary to conclude the ephod must have originally been some sort of pocket which the priests girded to themselves. However, the biblical text states the Urim and Tumim were placed in the breastplate, not the ephod. The integration of the stones in the breastplate, as well as the Hebrew usage of Urim as lights, suggests that the Urim and Tumim may have been a type of oracular device through which the priest would look when receiving divine communication. So, unfortunately, nobody knows exactly what the ephod was, right? The object at Nob, which must have been somewhat freestanding since another object is kept behind it, and the objects made by Gidon and by Micha from molten gold logically cannot have just been garments. The object made by Gidon is plainly described as having been worshipped, and therefore the idol of some deity, while the object made by Micha is closely associated with a teraphim. It's like a small graven image, and the ephod and teraphim are described interchangeably with the Hebrew terms pesel and masecha, meaning graven image and molten image, respectively. Even the ephods used for oracular purposes were not necessarily just pieces of cloth, as they are not described as being worn, but carried. The Hebrew term used in these passages to carry is nasa, which specifically implies that the ephod was carried either in the hand or in the shoulder. The conclusion thus is that the ephod in these cases referred to a portable idol, which the lots were cast in front of. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to stop reading there. So we have a problem. We don't really know what the ephod was. Okay. Again, these are all kind of educated guesses. So since we're not going to do a full study on what the ephod is right now, we'll just stick with this kind of yellow thing that you see here, and assume that it was some kind of overgarment that goes over the robe, and to which the choshen, the breastplate, is attached. Okay. Just curious to see if this video is ready. Almost. And then I'll have to see how I can play it. Okay, so that's that. The choshen, we said. So let's see. Roles, high priests, priestly garments, show. Okay. So the breastplate. This is the choshen. So here's a picture of the breastplate, the choshen. That's the first thing that's mentioned. Okay. Just read a little bit. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. The priestly breastplate, choshen, was a sacred breastplate worn by the high priest of the Israelites, according to the book of Exodus. In the biblical account, the breastplate is termed the breastplate of judgment, choshen HaMishpat, in Exodus 28:15, because the Urim and Tumim were placed on it, and that's also going to be in the same chapter. These elements of the breastplate are said in the Exodus verse to carry the judgment of God concerning the Israelites at all time. So here, according to the description in Exodus, this breastplate was attached to the tunic-like garment known as an ephod by gold chains or cords tied to the gold rings on the ephod's shoulder straps, and by blue ribbon tied to the gold rings and at the belt of the ephod. So the choshen, this is the choshen, was attached to the ephod, and we'll see that. Okay, so that's the choshen. And I guess we can get into more of each of these garments later on. So what's the next thing that's mentioned after the ephod? We have the ma'il, priestly garments. So that is going to be, let's see, that's probably going to be the frontlet. No, that's nefet. Sorry. All priests. Turban, the sash, the robe, the frontlet, robe. So is this the one they're talking about when they said the ma'il? Yes, this is the ma'il. Okay, so this is the next one. This is the ma'il. Ma'il in modern Hebrew means a jacket or a coat. And the priestly robe, ma'il, sometimes robe of the ephod, is one of the sacred articles of clothing, bigdei kehuna, of the Jewish high priest. The robe is described in Exodus 28:31. Blah blah blah. It was worn under the ephod. So let's get a picture of the robe. So this is as it was created by the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. Of course, they go by the rabbinical understanding a lot. Oops. But if we go back to, let's see the original picture from the ephod. So in this picture, the ma'il is going to be, excuse me, I think I have to sneeze. Excuse me. So here we see the breastplate. This is the ephod, the yellow garment, and then underneath this robe kind of thing, this white robe, that's the ma'il, it would seem. Okay? So choshen, ephod, ma'il. So working our way down. All right, let's see what we can learn about the ma'il a little bit. So we go back to priestly garments. So we go to, where were we? The robe. Okay, so the priestly robe, sometimes called robe of the ephod. Okay, so it was worn under the ephod like all priestly garments. It was to be made by gifted artisans filled with the spirit of wisdom. The Hebrew noun ma'il occurs 30 times in the Masoretic text, and here's the word in Hebrew. I'll just highlight it in, if you can see that. It's where my cursor is right now. So the Hebrew noun ma'il occurs 30 times in the Masoretic text of the Hebrew Bible and refers not only to the robe of the high priest, but also any robe worn over a tunic by men of rank, such as the robe Jonathan gave to David, or his mantle, which Job tore in desperation, and also the outer cloak of women, such as the robe worn by David's daughters. Okay. It was a sleeveless purple, blue, or violet tchelet robe woven in a single piece. The opening in the center for the high priest's head to pass through was woven, not cut or torn. The lower hem of the garment was fringed with small golden bells, alternating with pomegranate-shaped tassels of blue, purple, and scarlet wool. The golden bells were a necessity, and they must ring when the high priest entered the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement. And we're going to get to all this in this chapter. Okay, so here's a picture of the ma'il, okay, which we'll get to in greater detail. Let's see how I can make this larger. I guess I can't. No, that only makes it smaller. Okay, so that's the ma'il. We'll try to get to some of these later in greater detail. Then we have the ketonet. So the ketonet, let's go to priestly garments again. So that's going to be the tunic. Ketonet, okay? It was an undergarment or shirt worn by the high priest and priests when they served in the tabernacle and the temple in Jerusalem. And let's see if we can find a picture of it. Let's do it this way. In fact, let me do this. Open a new link. And we can just leave this picture up. So it would seem to me that here we could see the ketonet right by the legs, not the red thing. The red thing is the sash, I believe. But these, what looks like pants, that's going to be the ketonet. So we have from the top down, or from the outside in, we have the choshen mishpat. The yellow one here, this is the ephod. Then underneath we have the ma'il, and then underneath that we have the ketonet. Okay. So let's see what it has to say about that. Etymology: the Hebrew noun kutonet, is a generic term for a tunic in Hebrew. The first use is the coats of skins made for Adam and Eve in Eden. The best known use would be the coat of many colors of Joseph. It is related to and maybe the source of the Greek noun kiton, tunic. Of course it is. Instructions for making the tunic. And this is in this chapter, is made of pure linen, covering the entire body from the neck to the feet, with sleeves reaching to the wrists. That of the high priest was embroidered. Those of the priests were plain. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest would change into a special tunic made of fine linen that was not embroidered when he would enter the Holy of Holies. This tunic could be used only once, with a new set made for each year. Okay, so if we go back to this picture over here, we can see that, let's see here. Yeah, so you can see this is it right here, going down the sleeves to the wrists and going all the way down to the feet. Okay, that is the ketonet. Then we have the tashbetz. I'm sorry, it's ketonet tashbetz. And tashbetz is, well, in modern Hebrew, tashbetz is a crossword puzzle, but checkered, okay? So a checkered work. And so here they translate it as a tunic of checkered work, right? Ketonet tashbetz. Okay, the word only appears once, so from Shabbat, which appears a number of times. Shibatzta, Mishubatzim. So I don't know how they know that it's checkered, okay? So probably weave and checker or plaited work. Tunic in pieces, Vishibatzta. Perfect masculine singular, Vishibatzta. I shall checker or plait the tunic in pieces. Okay, pieces shesh. Okay, so Mishubatzim Zahav. Right. So I don't know where they get the idea that it's checkered, but that's the way it's usually checkered. And if you want to do a crossword puzzle in modern Israel, you do a tashbetz. So it's the same word. So a checkered tunic, right? So again, if we look at this picture right here, we could see that they seem to have drawn it, although it's very hard to see here. Let's see, can I make this bigger? Nope, that didn't help. That's about as big as I can get it. So you can see it looks kind of like looks like it has stripes there, but I guess it's, if you looked at it more closely, it would be checkered. Okay, so that is the checkered tunic, which is the ketonet tashbetz. Then we have the mitznefet. So the mitznefet is the turban. So this is this right here. So the priestly mitre or turban, Hebrew mitznefet, was the head covering worn by the high priest of Israel when he served in the tabernacle in the temple in Jerusalem. The Hebrew word mitznefet has been translated as mitre or headdress. It was most likely a turban, as the word comes from the root to wrap. So here again, if we look at the picture, so this is the mitznefet, that's the turban there, right, on his head. Okay. The turban worn by the high priest was much larger than the head coverings of the priests and was wound so that it formed a broad, flat-topped turban resembling a blossom of flowers. maybe not. The head covering of the priests was different, being wound so that it formed a cone-shaped turban called a mikbahat. I don't know where they're getting that from. This is all rabbinical, I think, interpretation, but whatever. It was to be made of fine linen, and like all the holy garments, it was to be made by gifted artisans filled with the spirit of wisdom. Rashi, forget Rashi. The priestly crown, the tzitz, was attached to the turban by means of two sets of blue cords, one going over the top of the head. Okay, we'll get to that. So there it is. That's the turban. Okay. Blow this up for a second too. Another picture of the turban. Okay, so that is the mitznefet, and then we have the avnet. The avnet is the belt or the sash. So let's look at that. We'll go back to priestly garments. And we'll go to the sash. So the priestly sash or girdle, the avnet, was part of the ritual garments worn by the Jewish and priests. What that means? By the priests of ancient Israel, whenever they served in the temple, tabernacle, or temple in Jerusalem, the sash or girdle was worn by the high priest was of fine linen with embroidered work in blue, purple, and scarlet. Those worn by the priests were of white twined linen. The sash should not be confused with the embroidered belt of the ephod. Like other priestly vestments, the purpose of the sash was for glory and beauty. Exodus 28:41. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest changed into special linen garments that included a sash of fine linen without any embroidery. These linen garments were worn only once, with new ones being made each year. So let's see. Where is the sash? Yeah, so that's the thing that is hanging red at the feet. So the sash is, so not to be mistaken for this blue belt, right, of the ephod. The sash is underneath. It's above the ketonet and below the ma'il, right? So it holds the ketonet to the body. On top of that, so the ketonet is held to the body. So from the bottom, from the in out, right? The long robe that goes down to the priest's feet is the high priest's feet, I should say, that's the ketonet. This red belt that's hanging down to his feet, that's the sash, or the avnet. Then above it, we have here the ma'il. This is the ma'il with the pomegranates all around it. This thing over here. On top of the ma'il is the ephod. That's the thing that's depicted yellow here. I think it's just depicted yellow here to stand out from the rest. It doesn't mean it was yellow. Okay, and then on top of the ephod, we have the choshen, or the choshen mishpat. And then on the head, we have the mitznefet. Right? And that's all that's mentioned there. There are going to be other parts of the priestly garments that are mentioned afterwards. But that's all of them for now. So once again, choshen, ephod, ma'il, ketonet tashbetz, mitznefet, ve'avnet. Okay, breastplate, what we can call the vest, the robe, the undergarment. No, I don't know. I forgot how to translate them into English. I should make another list, but it's not necessary right now. Okay. The ketonet tashbetz, that long robe. The mitznefet is the turban, and the avnet is that red sash. Okay. Yasuvik de chodesh le Aharon achicha u levonav le kohanoli. Okay. So these are the garments that should be done for Aaron, your brother, and his sons. Okay. And once again, some are just for we go back here. Some are for all of the priests and some for the high priests. So we've spoken so far about the robe, that's the ma'il. Okay. The ephod is the ephod. The frontlet we haven't spoken about yet. That's going to be the tzitz, which we'll talk about. Okay. Oops. Then we spoke about the breastplate. That's the choshen mishpat. We have not yet spoken about the urim tumim. So that's for the high priest specifically. And then all priests wear the undergarments. So the undergarments are, mechnasei bad, biblical underpants, not made by Hanes or Fruit of the Loom. And then on top of it, we have the tunic. So that is going to be the ma'il. The turban is the mitznefet. And the sesh is the avnet. Okay. So what does the high priest get that the other ones don't? He gets the ephod. He gets the frontlet, the tzitz. He gets the choshen mishpat. He gets the urim and tumim. And he also gets the robe, this ma'il. Okay? So he has 5 extra garments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Robe, ephod. Well, I'll say robe, ma'il. Ephod is ephod in Hebrew. Frontlet is tzitz in Hebrew. Breastplate is choshen mishpat in Hebrew. And the urim and tumim, which nobody knows what the heck it is, but we'll talk about it. Okay. So that's it. Those are the dresses of the high priest. And we can move on. Let me see if my video is ready. Is it? It is ready. I can try to open it here and we can try to play it. And it's really enlightening. Let's see if it's going to work. Let's see if it's going to work. It'd be a miracle if I can open it here, but I'll try. Okay. No, it opens it in the, okay, so I'm gonna have to do this differently. Open in the QuickTime player. So let me just see just give me 1 second here. Okay, let's do it this way. Let me go back here. And I'm gonna watch this too because it's been a while since I was there. So let me unshare the screen this way, stop screen, share screen. We're gonna go for window and we're gonna go for this sucker over here. And let's see if this works. Yeah. Okay, good. So just to say a couple of things. Let me just stick my face in there again. So just to say a couple of things. The tour guide is not a Christian, but you'll see there's a bunch of Chinese tourists. So as you're watching it, every so often he speaks in English and then it's translated to Chinese. So unless you know Chinese, then it's going to be all Chinese or Greek to you. So just listen for the English. It's a little bit annoying, but that's the way it was. We were on the same tour group as a bunch of Chinese tourists. And the person often refers to Christian things, but he himself is not a Christian. He's catering to his Chinese audience, which is Christian. So just try to ignore some of the Christian stuff that he mentions. And I will start the video and we'll watch it together. This is the first time I've watched the video in a long time, so it will refresh my memory just as much as it does yours. And here we go.
Sinai, Moses receives a very important commandment.
那我们知道摩西的话呢，他去了西乃山，取得那个十诫，包括的话呢，整个会幕的那个建造。
God says, "V'ivnu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tucham." Build me a temple so that I can dwell, so that I can be inside my people Israel.
我只是偶尔我们合作。
Wait a sec. There was no sound the whole time? Oh no. That's why I should check on the YouTube. There was no sound whole time. Oh, that stinks. I had no idea. I'm gonna play it again from the beginning because it's honestly, it's worth it. Let me see. I must have shared it wrong. Let me check this time. Let me do it a bit more carefully. Let me do this a bit more carefully. Wow, I must have forgotten to do. Wait a second. Share screen. Do I do window? Shh. It should be sound. Wow, I don't understand. Let me see what's going on. I find that hard to believe. The sound should have been. That really stinks if there was no sound. Let me see something. I'm going to try again. And let me see something here.
Now the high priest would enter here on the Day of Atonement
对的，他后来呢，看到这里面的话呢，他就迅速就发了
with
羊
the，blood,
对，
and he would sprinkle 7 times. Yeah, you know the blood?
Thank you.
Yeah, and he would dip his fingers and he would sprinkle 7 times.
他说他的那个手血弹7次，
Yeah, and then also in front of the ark.
还有的话呢，就他在地上，
And then on the altar of incense and the altar of sacrifices outside.
对，他的血的话呢是这里边是不是还有呢外面，对，
Yeah, and then he would change. Remember, in here you were only white, but outside he changed back into colorful clothes.
Oh,
So everything here is basically the actual size as described in the
Yeah,
Torah.
as much as possible. If it's not described, then we have to put something.
Right.
Like the thickness of the earth is described.
Right.
It was 1.5 by 1.5 by 2.5.
Right.
This was 1.5 by 10, but then whatever it is, the measurement.
So how do you what's your personal opinion about measurements that are not mentioned in the Torah that are filled in later by the rabbis? Do you think they just kind of made it up, or they what? Personally, yeah, personally, because you seem to know a lot about this place. I have my own opinion. I'm just curious your opinion.
I usually don't go for
Mhm.
especially depending on what they, obviously depending on what it is, right?
Right.
It has to be something. They tell me, I don't know how Muhammad was given it.
出来3个月以后，
At Mount Sinai, Moses receives a very important commandment.
那我们知道摩西的话呢，去了西乃山，取得那个十诫，包括的话呢，整个会幕的那个建造。
God says, build me a temple so that I can dwell, so that I can be inside my people Israel.
帮忙
我只是偶尔我们合作，没有，他就是说，建造会有很多嘛，然后我就会
与我们同在，
对啊，我就是同在的意思，和我的子民在一起，
就是神与我们同在的意思。会幕一开始建造，就神就与我们同在。
So God shows Moses what to build. He explains to him the measurements, and those what we have in the book of Exodus, chapter 25.
那就是神的话呢，为什么的话叫摩西的话呢建造这个会幕哈？
Someone please tell me if you can hear the sound.
Everything given in cubits.
那这个的话呢，会幕的整个建造的话呢，在圣经里面也有提到，在那个
1 cubit is from the end of the fingers to the end of the elbow. That's a cubit.
对，那它的就是长啊，都是以轴的，就是名称命名的。
It's about 40 to 50 centimeters.
那它的就是长啊，都是以轴
It's made to be taken apart and moved to a new place.
哦，他们就是带他们去新的地方 move to a new place，就是带他们离开。
他们的，比如说他们要去另外一个地方，会幕也要跟着移动啊。
And from in the Levite tribe, God chooses the priests.
就是利未支派，他
Priests like Aaron. Aaron was the high priest.
对对，他就是那个亚伦是最高的
祭司。
And they're in charge of the sacrifices and the offerings. Okay, so if somebody had a sacrifice, they'd bring it to the gate of the tabernacle and give it to the priest, and he does the work.
Simply, too much I can't translate.
If you have a sacrifice,
sacrifice， 它是一个洁净的，
you bring the sacrifice to the priest.
那如果的话，你要进会幕的话呢，首先我们要先洁净自己。
再去区的
And
祭
the
司，
priest would do the work. The priest would kill the animal for you.
对，祭司
那
会
对，
去
献祭，献祭哦。
So let's continue talking about that inside. We can see that.
OK，那我们的话呢，现在的话呢，进入
I'm guessing I'm going to end up making this very simple because she's having a hard time translating. So why don't you stand next to me when we move from place to place? I'll give you more details.
Okay, excellent.
So first of all, it says that there were 8,580 Levites between the ages of 30 and 50 that are in charge of the work. They were divided into 3 families of the Levites. The Koch family, which is living on the south, that's where the priests, the Kohanim, came out of. The Gershon family living on the west, and on the north, we have the family. They're all in charge of the work. Every family had a different story.
And the 8,500, that's from the count in Numbers, in the book of Numbers, in Bamidbar?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not the number of all tribes. That's the number of the people actually working. The holy items are carried by the Koch family. The 2 other families are in charge of taking the part of the things and loading it onto the box truck. So the courtyard, I'll say that in a second, but the altar is near the gate. It was made out of acacia wood, covered in copper. It was 5 cubits by 5 cubits by 3 cubits high.
Yep.
This is the kevish, the ramp that led up to the altar. And inside you had Ishatamit, the eternal fire, the perpetual fire.
Yep.
Behind it, the wash basin. We'll get to all of it later. So
Okay. Is this real copper here, or that's
no.
Okay.
Simple, not too much.
Oh yeah, I'll try to make it simple. All right, so now we enter into the courtyard.
那这个的话呢，就是整个这个里面，这个是外院子，就是相对于那个这个圣所来说，这个就是外院。
The courtyard was 50 by 100.
那这个的话呢，长是100轴，宽是50。
The altar sacrifice was 5 by 5.
那这个的话呢是5轴乘5轴。
Building
对，那里面的话呢，至圣所的话呢是最高的。
These are the measurements. And this is where the sacrifice will go.
那这个的话呢是一个翻祭坛。
There are many different kinds of sacrifices. There are many kinds. Many kinds of
各种
sacrifices.
有各种各样的那个翻祭坛形状的建造都是不一样的。
And this was the work of the priest. But the most important of the sacrifice was the sin sacrifice.
那
罪就是那
If you do something bad,
个信这个就是一个赎罪的那个。
那翻祭坛的话呢，就是献那个赎罪祭的地方哈。
So if somebody had a sin sacrifice, they would bring it to the gate of the tabernacle. They would give it to the priest. And the priest would kill the animal and do the work.
那我们的话呢，就是你要进入圣殿之前的话呢，首先我们要献祭，像我们的罪的话呢，就是隔着洁净。
You would take the blood of the sacrifice and you would sprinkle it on the horns of the altar.
那他们的话呢，就是将那个牛啊、公羊的血啊，就是洒在这个4个角上。
Because in Leviticus chapter 17, the 3rd book of Moses,
要弹3次，是吧？
17. 1:7.
一章没有1章14节，它是那个叫做什么端几节？1章14节。
It says that life
生命
is in the blood.
血里头有生命，
God says don't drink blood,
所以就不要喝血，
don't eat blood.
不要吃血。
It's only to be used for atonement to cover, lechaper, which means to cover, okay, the sins of the people.
就是这个去就是救赎这个血
血是预表救赎的意思。
If somebody had a sin, they would bring their sin sacrifice, and the life, the blood of that animal was used to cover the sins of the people or the person.
所以人们从这个门进来的时候，就要那个动物的血来洁净他的罪就是旧约的时候要动物的血来洁净。
So that's where this is happening at the altar of sacrifice.
这个祭坛就是这个献祭的祭坛。
Let's walk over to the wash basin next.
对，那我们的话呢，洗濯盆这个的话呢是翻祭坛那这个
So this is an actual recreation, like it has all the lulaot and the klasim and everything that's described, or
No klasim, actually.
okay,
I'll,
you'll get to that.
Thinking maybe to do them very quickly.
洗濯盆 OK。
So I'll be back in like 5 minutes.
No,
Okay?
but you know everything.
I know, but I'm not allowed to let people give their own tours. That's the thing. But I just don't want them to be waiting because I can just do it very fast with them and then I'll be back.
Okay.
So if you just have maybe 5 minutes, you can explain to them about this and I'll be back. Okay? Here, why don't you?
Okay.
Whoever can speak English fast.
Okay,
If not, you can join the.
all right.
Okay. So wash basin?
Yep.
Wash basin made out of pure copper, no measurements, no cubits like that. There are measurements of the temple wash basin, but not the tabernacle wash basin.
Interesting.
We know that it contained water like the temple. It was put between the altar and the holy place, and this is where the priests need to wash their hands and their feet before sacrificing and before entering. Only priests can enter. The Levites can all be in the courtyard, but only priests are allowed to enter.
Right.
Holy place. Before we enter, I just want to explain.
And only Israelites can only go up to the gate, right?
You probably, yeah.
Okay.
There's actually a little bit of a little bit difficult to understand because it says "Azav lo yikanes," the stranger shall not enter, which usually means someone not from the tribes.
Right.
But it says "Halevi velo hazav," Halevi velo hazav, right? So
Mhm.
Levi and hazav. So anyway, it's a little bit.
Got it. Interpretation.
Yeah. So right now we're on the southern side of the tabernacle. The tabernacle is built in the same direction. So it's east and west. So this is the southern wall.
Mhm.
If you look in the book of Exodus, there's a description of the panels, which are the boards that made up the walls of the tabernacle. The tabernacle has a south, west, and north wall. The panels were made out of acacia wood covered with gold, a cubit and a half wide, each 10 cubits high. Every panel sat in 2 silver bases, was connected by 5 rods, 5 connecting rods, 5 total. 4 of them were on the outside. Those are the ones that you see. And then 1 of them down the middle inside the panels themselves, holding it together so that whenever they have to move, the rods are pulled out and they're loaded on the ox cart by the Levites, right? Only holy items have to be hand carried by the Kahat family from the tribe of Levi. Everything else is just taken by animal. Over the tabernacle, you had 4 coverings. This is the first of 4 coverings. It was made out of linen, that blue, white, purple, and red linen fibers that were woven together. It was made in 10 sections. Every section was 4 cubits wide and 28 cubits long. On these sections, you had the artisan's design of the cherubim angels woven on with a golden thread. Over this, you had the second covering made out of goat's hair. Okay, that's the second covering. The third covering was made out of ram skins dyed red, and the last covering was made out of tachash. We don't know exactly what a tachash is, but it's an animal. So it's a leather covering. So linen, goat's hair, and then 2 leather coverings.
So, but over here, this is supposed to be the linen?
Yeah.
And the goat's hair?
The goat's hair, we have everything like open right now because
Okay.
we're like exposing the first one, the prettier one of the covering.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
We don't know if there was an angle or not. There might have been. Like in the
Mhm.
temple, this area was used for storage, for changing, cleaning. So
Mhm.
possibly the same over here. It actually doesn't say.
Mhm.
But mainly we have it open also for structural integrity and also to expose the first the covering. Let's step in quickly. Alright, so now we enter into the holy place on the priest row here. This is where you have the menorah. The menorah was made of 1 piece of solid gold. It had 3 branches off of the inside, a flower and an almond as the decoration of the branches, 7 oil lamps on the top giving light. And this was the only source of light in the room. The screen that we passed was always closed, no doors or windows, only the menorah is giving light. The menorah was on the southern side of the room. In front of it on the north was the table of showbread. The table was made out of acacia wood, it was covered with gold. It was a cubit by 2 cubits by a cubit and a half. On it was 6 pieces and 6 pieces of showbread. The bread that represents the 12 tribes of Israel and how God looks after them and cares for them. This is also the bread that the priests had to eat every Shabbat, every Sabbath. The priests would eat this bread. Over here, the altar of incense was also made out of acacia wood, covered with gold. It was a cubit by 2 cubits. Inside, there was fire that was brought from outside from the altar of sacrifice. And this is where the priests would light the incense in the morning and in the evening every day. So here we have incense. What language do you speak? Czech. Czech. Wow. But white
Out of luck.
So here we have the description of the clothing of the priest and the high priest. So the priest wore a white hat, white tunic, white pants, and a colored sash around his waist. The high priest wore a white hat, white tunic, white pants, and a colored sash around his waist as well. But he also wore a golden band on his forehead that says "Holy to the Lord" or "Holiness to the Lord." Over his white clothing, he wore a blue robe. On the hem of the blue robe, there was a golden bell and pomegranate. Over his upper body, he wore the ephod, which had 2 stones on it. These are the onyx stones, and engraved onto these stones were the 6 names and 6 names of the children of Israel. It was connected to the chushan. This is the breastplate, which had 12 stones on it and 1 name engraved onto every stone. Again, he's wearing this because it says that he bears their names. He carries them before God as he's sacrificing and doing the offerings for them daily. That's his work as the high priest. He's taking from among the people to represent the people. And once a year, he can enter into the Holy of Holies. That's only on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement. On that day, he takes blood from 2 different sacrifices. One of them was for his sins, and one of them was for the sins of Israel. And he takes both of these into the Holy of Holies.
Really doing a nice job. Hope that everyone doesn't die by going to the Holy of Holies.
All right, so now we enter into the Holy of Holies, and it has to be open. That's the name of this great box. So past it is where the Ark of the Covenant was kept. The Ark was also made out of acacia wood, and it was covered with gold from the inside and outside. It had a solid gold covering. That's the component, the lid of the Ark, with 1 cherubim on either end, and their bodies one towards the other. Their faces downward towards the center of the covering, and inside you had the 2 stone tablets. These are the second stone tablets. Remember, Moses broke the first one and the second one. And then you also had a bowl with manna. And you had a bowl with manna. Then you had a bowl with manna to remind the children of Israel of how God provided for them. That's the manna they ate in the wilderness. Then you had the staff of Aaron also. That was to remind them not to rebel against God. That's from the end of the rebellion.
That was inside the ark? No, that was next to the ark. Yeah, that's what I thought.
The bowl of manna and the staff were outside front. The tablets are inside, and alongside the ark, from Deuteronomy chapter 31, we have the 5 books of Moses were put over here. When Moses finishes writing them. Back to the day of atonement, the high priest enters dressed in white after lighting incense inside the room, and he sprinkles the blood on the covering of the ark 7 times in front of the ark, on the corners of the incense and the altar sacrifice outside. And then he continues the work, but outside, because there are many more sacrifices. But in here, he only brought those first 2, and the rest were done outside. Okay, that's actually about it. Any questions or anything? Any quick questions? Any?
Good question.
All right, I'm going to run back to the other group. If anybody would like to join that group as well,
Yeah,
you're welcome
I
to
think
first,
so, yeah.
but I'm going to go back to the group.
Navi.
Of course, the actual ones wouldn't have been written in Ashrit, the Assyrian script. It would have been written in Paleo-Egyptian script, but close enough. It's supposed to be Aaron's blossom branch. I guess it's supposed to be the bowl of manna. That's what I said, yeah. Well, who would understand it? Come, let's go out and join the other group. Is the menorah all beat out
Or
of?
if you just write tabernacle 10, then you'll eventually find
I'd love to go through the Exodus 25. Like, it's just amazing. I mean, what a coincidence! I just did this chapter with Hakham Melech the other day, and now here we are as a live version of it.
All right, so whoever is interested can come back and keep explaining.
This is the priest.
What do you mean, Lavi?
So they wash there, right? And then they can enter into the holy.
那我们的话呢，从外面的话呢，洗着盆之后的话呢，我们就进入了这个圣所。
Showbread.
有12个，他的名字刻在这个报纸上面，
说的话呢，只有祭司才可以有资格进入。
And into the Holy of Holies, only the high priest could enter.
那如果至圣所的话呢，只有大祭司才可以进去。
This is where you had the menorah,
那
the
这里
table, and the altar.
那这里的话呢，有金灯台和陈设饼的桌子，还有呢祭山台。
The menorah was made of solid gold.
那这个金灯台的话呢，是由纯金打造的。
It had 3 branches off of either side.
那这里的话呢，就是有三朵花，这整个就是这一支有3朵花。
7 oil lamps on the top.
那一共有7支。
This is the source of light.
这个是
If there wasn't this, it would be dark. This is the only light.
哦，那这个的话呢，就是要一直点着，不可以熄灭的。
生命之源。
所以说那个生命之源。
So every day, in the morning and in the evening, the priest would enter here to make sure that the menorah has enough oil, has enough wick.
那每天的话呢，早晨跟晚晨的话呢，祭司的话呢，都会给这个灯如果添油后，不让它熄灭。
Now, the menorah was put on the southern side of the building.
那金灯台的话呢，是放在圣所里面。
And in front of it on the north was the table of showbread right here.
那在北边的话呢，是有陈设饼的桌子。
The table was made out of acacia wood.
那这个陈设饼的话呢，是无酵饼。
Shittim? What is it? Shittim?
Shittim. In Hebrew, shittim.
是
It's a type of wood, the desert wood. You see it here?
So these trees we see around here, that's all acacia?
There are many different types of acacia.
Yeah, because the one up in
200 different-
Yerushalayim is very different. There's some the tree up there they call acacia.
Well, there are two main different like families. One of them is the one that looks more like a bush.
Okay.
Right, there's one that actually looks like a bush. Just looks like a big bush. And then one looks more like a tree, but it actually has a trunk. Right. So
Right.
those are the 2 main kinds. The Bible says that it says shittim of dim were used, which is probably the one that actually has a that's the problem. But it's the desert tree, yeah, the desert that you see all around here. The tree, yeah. So that's
Yes.
the
沙漠一种。
就是yes。那这个陈设饼的桌子的话呢，是由皂荚木做的。那皂荚木在里边，外边的话呢包着金。
and then it was covered with gold.
yes，包着木包
It
金。
had 6 pieces and 6 pieces of bread on it.
对，那每一堆的话呢，都有6个饼，
Representative of 12 tribes.
那就是代表着以色列的12个支派。
Reminding of how God takes care of them, looks after them, provides them with everything they need as they're wandering in the wilderness.
那这个是
这就是照顾他们，保护他们，对，让他们免受，就是保护他们，就是免受。
And every
饥饿
Shabbat,
之苦。
and every Shabbat, every Sabbath, the priests would eat the bread.
那只有的话呢，在安息日的时候的话呢，那利未支派的话呢，可以过来的话呢，吃这个饼。
So, can I ask a question? Is there
安
any
息日的时候，
significance to
那个利未
the
支派。
entrance of the tent being towards the east, towards the rising sun?
I would say so, yeah.
Mhm.
So when you look at the tabernacle, the directions are east, west.
那我们的话呢，看那个东边朝东，对。
Now, east is usually the directions is associated with idol worship, with pagan worship.
那是那个东边是比较神圣的地方。
对啊，它是一个
But the worship in the tabernacle really is toward the west.
那是的所以的话呢，他们的
对，那个
敬拜
是像是偶像的，所以它朝西。On the west.
对
This is the west.
对不对？有
But in the tabernacle, if you want to walk closer to God right now, what direction do you go? You go towards the west.
Yes.
That's
对，
where
因
you
为
go.
东边是偶像的，所以他要转回西边。
If you want to leave God's house, if you want to leave the tabernacle, where do you walk? You walk towards the east. That's where the
门是朝东的。
门是朝东的。
Close to
idol worship is towards the east because that's where the sun rises.
他说东边的话呢是太阳升起的地方。
The worship of the tabernacle is towards the west because God is not the sun.
他说神的话呢，他不是太阳。
You turn your backs on the false gods as you're walking to the God of Israel to worship this God.
所以的话呢，我们进来的话呢，之后的话呢，应该要背朝的东边然后就是面对的西边
In
来
the
进
book of
来。
Ezekiel, Ezekiel, the Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Prophet, the prophet. Prophet Ezekiel.
这是先知书里头的一个先知书里头
It's a book. It's a
对先知书了，以斯帖吧。
You know Isaiah the prophet?
以赛亚，
Okay, so after Isaiah, then there's Jeremiah,
耶利米，
and then after Jeremiah, there's Ezekiel.
协里面后面是以西结的。
Yeah. Okay. So in the book of Ezekiel, it talks about 25 people that are in the courtyard where we just were. It's talking about the temple, but it's the same idea, of course. Okay. And it says that they were in the courtyard.
所以西结书有什么25个人在那个
It says there that their backs are towards God.
是背是对，
And that their faces are towards the east.
他们的脸朝的东西。
And it says that they were worshiping the sun.
他们去敬拜太阳神。
Okay? So you can see that this very clear. You're either worshiping this way or worshiping that way. You can't worship both directions at the same time.
对，你不能又敬拜神又敬拜假神，那就是这样。
Worshiping one means turning your back on the other.
对你敬拜一个就是你肯定是就背朝
That's
另
what
外
I
一
would
个。
say about the directions.
Interesting. Wow.
This is the altar of incense.
对，那这个的话呢，就是
金香台
The altar was made out of the desert tree.
那这整个的话呢，都是由那个皂荚木
And then it was covered in mold.
对，然后呢包金。
And inside there was fire that was brought from the altar outside.
那它这里面的灰的话呢，是要到了外面去。
And here the priests would light incense. You know what incense is? Like you burn it. You take like different ingredients, you burn it. And then
那
it
个
burns it, it
香
smells
哦，
good.
他们的香的话呢，是在里面，然后的话就是给耶和华神衣上的香气。对，香气。
So the priests would light incense here in the morning and the evening.
那这个香的话呢，也是由早晨的话呢到晚上。
And here we have the clothing that's described for the priest.
那这边的话呢，就是大衣是装束，对。
So the priests were wearing white hat, white tunic, white pants, and a colored sash.
对，那这个祭司的这个是普通的祭司，他是有白色的帽子、白色的衣服、袍子，然后彩色的那个腰带。
The high priest wore a white hat, white tunic, white pants, and a sash on his waist as well.
那这个是大祭司哈，他的话呢也是白色的帽子衣服哈，然后的话呢外面的话呢再加上一个以弗德。
He wore on his forehead a golden band that says "Holy to the Lord."
对，那这额上的话呢，还有一块那个金，对，金就是对以耶和华为圣。
Now, over his white clothing, he wore a blue robe.
那他的白色的衣服外面的话，还有一个蓝色的衣服。
On the hem of the robe, there was a golden bell.
那对他的衣服的底下的话呢，还有那个金的铃铛。
And on his upper body, he wore the ephod.
那这个马甲一样的，这个就是以弗的啊。
On the shoulders of the ephod, there were 2 stones.
对，那它的两肩的话呢，是有2块石头。
Engraved onto these stones were 6 names of the children of Israel.
对，那它每个肩上的话呢，有6个支派的名字啊。
And it was connected to the breastplate.
那这边的话呢，有12颗宝石。
This had 12 stones.
那这里对有12个石头。
These are the names of the
那这
tribes.
上面的话呢，也是以色列12个支派的名字。
It says that he carries them on his shoulders and on his breastplate as he brings them before God, sacrificing for them continuously.
对，他呢把呢以色列的12个支派的话呢，他担在他的肩上，放在他的心里面。
All right. Now that's his work as the high priest.
那这个的话呢是大祭司的工作。
That's all he does. He doesn't finish being a high priest. Only when he dies, then somebody takes his place.
对，不会停止。对，不会停止。对，对，他呢一直他去世了之后，另外有一个人来继续他的工作。
Now, once a year, the high priest, and only the high priest, can enter into the Holy of Holies.
那这个就是大祭司的话呢，就是1年1次的话呢，才能够进入至圣所。
Only on the Day of Atonement.
那只有在赎罪日的时候才能够进去。
He would enter on the Day of Atonement with blood from 2 sacrifices.
就是有2个祭物就不让2个祭物的血带上两个。
对，他要进去之前的话呢，他要带上2个祭。
One of them was for his sins, and one of them was for the sins of Israel.
一个是他自己的罪，一个是 people， 就是
对别人的罪，
就2个。
And these were both taken in.
他把2个都带进去。
And then there was also another sacrifice called the scapegoat. Okay? It's a sin sacrifice. Excuse me. It's a sin sacrifice, but it was taken into the desert. It was thrown out in the
哦，对，
desert.
就是那个罪赎罪，这个罪祭，就罪祭有平安祭啊什么的，那罪嫌祭，他就扔到那个沙漠外面。
It was a symbol of how God takes the sin away from the camp. The sin is taken from the people. It's put on this animal, and the animal is thrown out of the camp.
他的话呢，就是把那些就是寄生的话呢，就是撒在外面然后的话呢，再进来里边。
Before the high priest goes inside, he takes from the fire and 2 handfuls of incense, and he lights it inside the Holy of Holies.
OK， 那他说他的大祭司的进去之后的话，那他手上的话要拿着火
And then he changes.
那然后的话，他
He
换了
wears
衣服。
only white when he goes inside.
对他进去的话呢，就是他把这个外面的衣服都换掉，就穿这个里面白色的衣服进
So
入。
let's enter, and I'll keep explaining.
那他不穿那个打铃铛的死要怎么办呢？
So as you're entering, you're going past this stream, which is called the Pavochet. That's the name of it.
那他们的话呢，从那个外面的圣水的话呢，进入这个至圣所，它里面的话呢，就是有一个幔子来
And
着。
past it, that's where we are right now, is where the Ark of the Covenant was kept.
那我们的话呢，进入这个至圣所里面的话呢，这个呢是约柜。
The Ark was made of wood and covered with gold.
那它同样的话呢，也是用皂荚木包金制作的。
The lid of the Ark was made out of solid gold.
那它的话呢，上面的话呢是有那个2个的基路伯。
And on it, there were 1 cherubim on either end.
对，这是2个基路伯，他们是就是
With their faces downward, their faces were downward towards the center.
对，你看他的这个脸是朝着在底下的。
And their wings were spread up and over the Ark.
那它的2个翅膀的话呢是相对的。
In Exodus chapter 25, the second book of Moses.
那是在出埃及
You
记。
know Genesis, Exodus?
Yeah.
So Exodus chapter 25,
25章。
God says that he will speak and he will appear. He actually showed up between the cherubims and the boat. Right here in the center, God says that he'd be speaking from them.
他神说他自己就是那个施恩的座，施恩座先。
And inside the ark, you have the 2 stone tablets, the 10 commandments.
那在这里边的话呢，有2个法版。
So those were the second ones, because Moses broke the first ones.
那总共有2个，因为摩西不是摔碎了一个嘛，后来的话呢，又重新再弄了一个，这
And
是
you
第
also
2个。
had in the Holy of Holies a bowl of manna.
那这里面的话呢，还有圣马拿的金冠。
And it was put here to remind everybody that God had provided them for those 40 years in the desert.
对，他们的话呢，以色列人出埃及的时候，在旷野40年，就是靠吃马拿为生。
You also had the staff of Aaron.
那还有的话呢，是亚伦发芽的杖。
The staff was to remind everyone not to rebel against God.
那亚伦的杖的话呢，开始它是没有发芽的。
Now the high priest would enter here on the Day of Atonement
对的，后来呢，看到这里边的话呢，他就迅速就发了芽。
with the blood,
对，
and he would sprinkle 7 times. Yeah, you know the blood? Yeah, and he would dip his fingers and he would sprinkle 7 times.
他说他的那个手血弹7次。对。
Yeah, and then also in front of the ark.
那还有的话呢，就他在地上。
And then on the altar of incense and the altar of sacrifices outside.
对，他的血的话呢是这里边是不是还有那个外面？对。
Yeah, and then he would change. Remember, in here he wore only white, but outside he changed back into colorful clothing.
那他这里是穿白色的，出去的话呢，再套上那个蓝色的外袍。
Right, and then the day continued. There are many more sacrifices outside.
那他们出去之后，
在外面就很多天的那个继续的那个叫做赎罪啊。
对。
Can I ask? So everything here is basically the actual size as described in
Yeah.
Torah?
As much as possible. If it's not described, then we have to put something.
Right,
Like the thickness of the ark, which isn't described.
Right.
So that it was 1.5 by 1.5 by 2.5.
right.
This was 1.5 by 10, but the whatever there's the measurement, you have to guess it.
So how do you what's your personal opinion about measurements that are not mentioned in the Torah that are filled in later by the rabbis? Do you think they just kind of made it up, or they
So
where
you're
does
asking me personally.
personally? Yeah, personally, because you seem to know a lot about this place. I have my own opinion. I'm just curious your opinion.
I usually don't go for those, especially depending on what they, obviously depending on what it is, right?
Right.
Because it has to be something. If they tell me, I don't really have a problem with giving an opinion, but they can't say that's for sure how it was. That's my
Right.
opinion.
Right.
If somebody tells me this was for sure 1 cubit thick, that's what the rabbis say.
Right.
I'm not sure it was 1 cubit thick. I wouldn't bet any money on that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
If the Bible says something and then the rabbis will say something else, then I wouldn't go for that at all, right?
Right.
For example, some rabbis, I think that might actually be the Rambam, who says that the outer courtyard was 15 cubits high.
Mhm.
So I don't go for that at all because for sure it says in the Pshat, right? Like in the Torah itself, it actually says 5 high. Right? So that I for sure I would say no.
Right. Right.
So it depends exactly on what it was. Like, you can't just sweep them all together. So
Right.
I'm more specific.
Yeah, you're very much in line with my opinion, by the way. Yes, very much so. What's that?
What do you, is that pretty much what you think?
Pretty much what I think.
So
Absolutely.
do you not take the like what's it called? Do you not take it as authoritative or what is that?
Correct. I don't think it. Many years ago, I kind of started associating myself more with the Karaites. So I would. Yeah. So
So you really do shut.
very much into Pshat. Yes.
So this is the place to be.
Yeah.
Because people usually get mad at me for not going into the Midrash.
Right.
And I explain this is all Pshat over here.
Right.
My explanation, everything here is full Pshat.
Right.
Right.
Right. Sure. I very much agree.
Interesting. I usually, everyone's always usually, really Midrash. And then I'm like,
Right.
well, you get so into the Midrash, you totally overlook everything that's in the Pshat.
Or you contradict the Pshat, as you
Or you
said.
contradict the Pshat,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Which is way worse.
Yep.
Okay. And then, are you from a Christian background?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want me to explain from the New Testament as well?
Yes, we have a New Testament.
Okay. So all we talked about until now was all from the Torah, from the Old Testament.
Yes, 这是旧约，这些全都是
Now
旧
we're
约
talking about the fulfillment of this.
旧约的那个成全。
对。
Yeah. Now let's start at the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, I don't know either. At any rate, okay, so that's the video. Let me come back on here. I hope it was informative. I don't remember if we filmed any more than that. And then he goes, I think, speaking about Christian stuff. I don't know if he's a Christian. I remember I got the impression he was not a Christian, that he was just speaking to his audience. And I would say that probably the proof is, if he really were a Christian, he probably would have snuck some Jesus stuff into the explanation that we watched so far, because Christians have a lot of trouble not doing that. So we would have heard it somewhere. But I think he was just speaking to his audience who were Christians, and that's why he before he went into the Christian stuff, he asked them what they were. So I get the impression he's just kind of, I know he was Israeli. I think he said one of his parents or both of his parents were Americans, and just very knowledgeable, probably Karaite leaning, probably doesn't officially call himself a Karaite, but Karaite leaning. So this was in February of 2019, so just about 3 years ago, and it was a very great tour. If you're ever in, let's do it this way. If you're ever in Israel and down in the Eilat area, and you get a chance to go, you have a chance to go to Timna Park, which is about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes north of Eilat. Jump on it and go to this replica of the. Besides this, there are many other things in Timna Park. Timna Park is yeah. Thank goodness you're a Karaite Jews who follow Torah. Yes, thank goodness. Baruch Yoah. But Timna Park is definitely worth it. It's just beautiful. The stark desert beauty is gorgeous. Acacia trees you can see there, and they have paths. There are some rock formations. There were a bunch of things there. But the tabernacle tour, I don't know if this kid is still doing it, or hopefully all of the tour guides are as excellent as he was. He was really knowledgeable about his stuff. I mean, he's probably an expert. He is an expert on the tabernacle. So picture's worth 1,000 words. I hope that was worth it. I'll probably play the same thing again next week, or at least one or maybe two more times, because it's just worth it. Repetition is a great way to learn, and especially when you're visualizing something rather than just reading about it, it's a great way to learn. So that being said, we will go back into the text, and we'll go, I guess, for about another hour or so and see how far we can get. So we noted before, so we were in Exodus. Let me reshare the screen as it should be. Share screen. Window, Torah. Okay, there we go. So we had noted before that it seems that the first mention of Aharon and his sons being taken as the priests, as the Kohanim, is in Exodus 28:1. We were up to, I believe, Exodus 28 verse 4. We haven't gotten very far in this parsha, but oh well. Ela ha bigadim asher ya'asu hoshen ve'efod. We did this one already. והם ילכו את הזהב ואת התכלת ואת הארגמן ואת תולעת השני ואת השש. Okay? And one second, who's the hem? Wasita ואלה הבגדים אשר יעשו. Yeah, so this is referring to the subject of this verse, of this sentence is going to be the תתדבר אל כל חכמי לב אשר מלטיב רוח חוכמה. Okay, so you shall speak. This verse 3 says you shall speak to all of those who are wise of heart, who with whom I filled the spirit of wisdom. Okay, and they shall do the clothes, and they shall make the clothes of Aaron to sanctify him, so that he may serve me. Okay, so this is when it says in verse 5, they shall take the gold, and the tchelet is the sky blue, and the argaman is the purple. The tola'at shani is, we translated that as the worm scarlet, or the how did we translate it last week? I have it here. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, worm scarlet, right? So, and we said this was from a particular bug, the Kermes vermilio, right? And we spoke about how it's made, but some kind of creepy crawly, not creepy crawly, but some kind of bug, and we spoke about it at length last week. Okay, so Tolat Shani, the worm scarlet. What shesh? Shesh is usually translated as fine linen. Okay, but we saw that it might come from what are called the byssal threads of mussels, and may be related to sea silk. In some places, it is actually translated as byssus, B-Y-S-S-U-S. So it's part of the mussel, M-U-S-S-E-L, the sea creature known as the mussel. Okay, the Kermes vermilio, if it is from that, that's the Tola'at Shani, the worm scarlet. And let's just remember for a second what that was. Let's just some stuff. So there's scale insect. So they remember small, they resemble small flies. So these are scale insects right there. Okay, so the Kermes vermilio, which means the vermilio is red. So the red Kermes might be the source of this Tola'at Shani, and we spoke about it last week, so we're not going to get into it again. At any rate, what we did mention is that the tchelet may or may not come from the sea snail, the Murex, the Hexaplex trunculus. The argaman more likely does. The Tola'at Shani comes from the scale insect, and the shesh, if it comes from a mussel, these are all unkosher animals. 3 of them are sea creatures, if that's the case. Okay, so we see a lot of evidence that kosher animals were not needed at least to make dyes, right? Or in this case, to make actual fabric. Okay, so well, so the ephod. So we saw what the ephod was. This is the ephod, this yellow thing. It's not yellow in real life, but it's depicted here in yellow to distinguish it from the other one. So that's the ephod. It's kind of a vest. It's the outer vest, I guess you could say. That's usually just translated as ephod. Let's see if there's anything else that has to be said here. Yeah, it's just translated as ephod. Robert also just translated as ephod. Yeah. So here, Robert Alter says, in any case, the transformation of Moses' brother and nephews into a distinctive sacerdotal caste is the burden of this passage, and it is brilliantly priestly, and it is the brilliant priestly costume. Note the refrain, blah blah blah, for going for Smith, that most impressively affects this transformation. So that would seem to imply once again that verse 20, Exodus 28:1, is the first verse in which the Aaron and his sons are mentioned as being the Kohanim. Okay. Okay, breastplate and ephod and robe and checkwork tunic. Let's see what Robert Alter has to say, who has interesting things to say. The ancient audience of this text had an immense advantage over modern readers because it would have had some actual glimpses of all the splendid raiment and priestly ornamentation, and thus would have had a concrete notion of what was being referred to. There have been endless latter-day efforts to reconstruct the wardrobe and to parse the technical sartorial terms that are used to represent it, but these can be no more than amalgams of guesses and approximations, right? So in other words, what the saying is we don't really know what any of this stuff really looked like. Well, the present translation assumes the breastplate is still plausible for the Hebrew Hoshen, etymology uncertain. Others contend it is a smaller breast piece, or even a pouch. The ephod, the Hebrew root suggests binding or wrapping around, evidently was a kind of apron, although opinions differ on this. There's a secondary meaning as an oracular device. Okay. So now we're talking about the ephod. So verse 6, Rasu et ha ephod zahav chereth v'argamon v'tola'at shani v'shesh mashzar ma'aseh Hoshev. So the ephod, again, that's this thingy over here, the thing that's depicted in yellow over there, is to be made out of gold, tchelet, right, sky blue, argaman, purple, tolat shani, worm silk, shesh, that's usually translated as fine linen, but we said it may be the sea silk thing, again, from the bissel threads of a mussel, mussel. Mashzar, we explored this word last week, and I think we found that it only appeared in a couple of places. Or am I getting it mixed up? No, it appears in a lot of places. So Mashzar is understood as twisted, okay? Perhaps. So twisted linen, Shesh Mashzar. Ma'aseh Hoshev, and the work of Hoshev would be, the correct translation would probably be an artisan or something like that. How do they translate Ma'aseh Hoshev artistically? Okay, let's see here. We'll look at the Shokin Bible. So I got to scroll down again. This is Everett Fox. Good translation. So we're in Exodus 28. Woo. Get back here, you. Go all the way over there. Okay. So Exodus 28. the designer's making. So that's how they translate it. Okay, choshev in modern Hebrew is to think. Okay, so to design, to think up, I guess would be the idea. I think artisan would be a good translation there. Okay, let's see how Robert Altertreat translates that. Oops, where'd that go? Where's that? 28:6. 28:6. Designer's work. Okay. So there we go. Okay, so that's how it's translated as designer. Okay. So now we're talking about the ephod, right? Shtik tefot, ki tefot, horot. So two shoulders joined together. Now here's an interesting grammatical point to be made. Shtik tefot hovrot. So the subject of the sentence is two shoulders joined together. All right, or here he translates two joining shoulder pieces. Okay, but the verb here is yehyeh. Okay, it's a singular future or imperfect third person singular. But the subject is plural, right? Two shoulder pieces shall be joined together. So if we were to follow strict English grammatical rules, this should be yehyu, okay? Or yehyena, okay? Shall be, or tihyena, not yehyena, tihyena or yehyu, okay? Because it should be a plural verb, but it's a singular verb, and this just shows that Hebrew grammar doesn't work exactly the way, let's say, modern English grammar does. That really it's talking about the whole thing as a piece, and therefore it's a singular verb here. Okay, so yelo el shnei kitzotau with hubar. So two adjoining shoulder pieces shall be for it on its two sides or its two edges, and it shall be joined together. Okay, again, this is a bit technical, so let's see how other translations dealt with it. Two joining shoulder pieces, it shall have at its two edges and attached. Right, so we see this in the picture here. It's kind of hard to see here. It's a bit hard to see, but we saw it in the video. You can see there were kind of like these two shoulder pieces, and each one had a stone with 6 names of the tribes on them. Okay, or the names of 6 tribes on each shoulder piece. Okay, verse 8. With חשב עפודתו אשר עליו, כי מעשהו ממנו יהיה זהב, תכלת וארגמן ותולעת שני ושש משזר. And the design, right? So חושב is a designer, so the חשב עפודתו. So the design of his ephod, okay, ephod afudato, okay, asher alav, which is upon him, kim'aseh mimenu. Now this is also kind of a tough translation. Let's go see what how other people dealt with it, okay. And the fastening band that is on it shall be the same fashioning of one piece with it. So he translates this as the fastening band. So this cheshev avudato, the fastening band. And let's take a look at Everett Fox here. So the designed band of its ephod, which is on it according to its making, is to be from it of gold, of blue, violet, of purple, of worm scarlet, and of twisted byssus. Okay. It's a little bit of a difficult sentence to translate, and I don't want to get bogged down on it. So let's just go on to the next one. Verse 9, "V'lakachta shtei avnei shoham." So you take 2 shoham stones. What is shoham? Nobody knows. But now we can start adding this maybe. Okay, so we did have shoham last week. We said it's maybe onyx or carnelian or chrysoprase, different types of stones. We don't know exactly what it is. If it's onyx, it would look something like this. My sister has a cat named Onyx, so let's hope it doesn't look like a cat. Yeah. Let's find out. So there's onyx. Yeah, and the cat is black. Okay, so that's onyx right there. Okay. What's that? I don't know. Black onyx. So here's some more onyx. So it's a certain type of stone. At any rate, again, we're not going to get so bogged down right now. And again, nobody knows exactly what it is, but there's going to be this shoham stone. We'll call it onyx for the sake of argument right now. So take 2 onyx stones. And you shall engrave upon them, literally, I guess you could translate it as opening or open. Pitach would be the PL form of liftoach. So I guess make an opening, or by extension, engrave. Wa yiftach, it's all in the PL form. Let's find one that's in the PL form. Pitachta, so the translate is engrave. So it's the PL, or the intensive or transitive form of patach, which is to open. So you shall make an opening upon it, I guess by extension, grave. Okay, you shall engrave. Yeah, what is the etymology of the word engrave in that case? Grave, gravity, make heavy, engrave etymology. I wonder if it reflects the idea of making an opening. Let's see here. Etymology, engrave. I don't know why this doesn't go back any further. Etymology. Grave. Graven, to dig. Old Frisian, Dutch. Okay, so it goes back. So like to dig, like a grave. So to dig into. Engrave means to dig into, right? Engrave. And it comes apparently, according to this etymology, from some kind of Indo-European root. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So it doesn't really trace its way back to Latin or Greek or anything like that. So engrave means to dig into. So pitachta is expressing the same idea. It's like the intensive form of open. It means to make an opening in. So make an opening upon making an opening upon it. Engrave upon it Shemot Bnei Israel, the names of the children of Israel. Shisha mishmotam al ha'even ha'echad wa et shemot hashisha hanotarim al ha'even hashinit kitol dotam. Okay, so 6 on one stone, 6 on the other stone, and kitol dotam according to their births. Okay, kitol dotam according to their birth order would be the implication right there. So from the oldest to the youngest, right? And again, let's see how some of the translations deal with that word toldotam in that place. Toldot can be the generations of, or the births of. So let's just see here. So this is verse, where are we up to? That's verse 10. So Everett Fox says 6 of their names on the one stone, and the names of the 6 remaining ones on the second stone corresponding to their begettings. Okay. That's a good translation. I like that. And here you shall take 2. So he translates it not as onyx, but as carnelian. and engraving on them the names of Israel's sons, 6 of their names on the one stone, and the 6 remaining names on the other stone in the order of their birth, is how he translates Toldotam, right? So that makes sense, in their birth order. Okay, good translation. Okay, so, right. So that's that. Verse 11, Ma'aseh Harash Evan. So Choresh is also another form of dig or engrave, right? The Lachrosh is to plow, at least in modern Hebrew. Harash, craftsman, and I would assume in biblical Hebrew, although as I've mentioned many times, because I know both modern and biblical Hebrew, sometimes I need to check. Let's look at the underlying root, because the two overlap, or let's put it this way, people don't make a distinction between words in biblical and modern Hebrew, so it's always important to check. Right, engrave, plow, devise, right? So its basic form is to plow. Okay, so in this case, Ma'aseh Harash, so it would be a plower, a digger, right? Ma'aseh Harash Evan. So lapidary work, seal engravings. So Ma'aseh Harash, Robert Alter translates as lapidary work, and then seal engravings. You shall engrave on the 2 stones. So let's take a look again here. Ma'aseh Harash would be lapidary work. Okay, so Harash is the art, the engraving. So the work of engraving, okay, or of an engraver, I guess, would be Harash. Ma'aseh Harash Evan. So Harash Evan would be an engraver of stones. Pituche Chotam. The openings. This is again the same word we saw here. Pitachta. So pituche would be the engravings. Chotam is like a seal, right? So pituche chotam tiftach et shtei ha'avanim. So basically, it's saying in engraving, right? Engraver. Ma'aseh Harash Evan. Pituche chotam. Again, let's take a look at the. Okay. So Everett Fox translates it of stonecutters making with seal engravings. Okay. Maseh Harash Evan. Maseh would be the works of Harash Evan, would be a stonecutter. That's how Everett Fox translates it. I think it's a very good translation. Harash Evan. Achrosh again. Harash means to plow or dig. So the digger of a stone. So literally it's the works of a stone digger, a stone engraver. Pituche Chotam, the engravings of a seal. Okay, so again, what does Everett Fox do with that one? With seal engravings. Okay. Tifatach et shtei ha'avanim, you shall engrave, dig into the 2 stones. Al shemot bnei Israel. So you shall basically engrave into the 2 stones the names of the children of Israel. Okay, musabot mishpatzot zahav ta'aseh otam. So musabot mishpatzot zahav. So musabot is going to be set or laid back into. Mishpatzot is like checkers or settings, I guess, of gold. Ta'aseh otam. So Shemot ben Yisrael musabot mishpatzot zahav ta'aseh otam. Translation of Everett Fox there is you engrave the 2 stones with the names of the children of Israel, surrounded by braids of gold are you to make them. That's how he deals with that. These are all kind of very technical sentences, so it's good to get different translations. Seal engraving, you shall engrave on 2 stones the names of Israel's sons, encased in filigree of gold you shall make them. Encased in filigree of gold. I don't know enough about engraving and all of this stuff to even know what that means. And the Hebrew is a little bit technical, so I'm just going to leave it at that, unless we want to dig into it further. let's go through one more time. Maseh harash even. So once again, the work of a harash even, of stone engraving. Doche chotam, the engravings of a seal. Tifatach et shtei avanim, shall you engrave the two stones. Al shemot bnei Israel. With, I'll translate the al there as with the names of the children of Israel. Musabot, laid back in mishpatzot zahav ta'aseotam, laid back into or set in settings of gold shall you do them. So what the heck does that mean? Set in settings of gold. I don't even know what that means, to be honest, because I don't know enough about engraving. So let's take a look. Maybe we can get an idea from the picture of the Hoshen. So that's the breastplate here. No, I'm sorry, that's not the breastplate. That's on the ephod. Oops. So, so where does it mention? Let's see. Embroidered with skillful work and gold thread. We didn't get to that. Okay, that's something else. It's Rashi, forget Rashi. Yeah, I can't find it right here. Okay, so somehow set in gold or whatever. If we had more time, we could go into it a little bit more. Let me make one more effort and see if we can get a picture of the ephod and see maybe what they're talking about there. We'll go to images. I don't know. It's hard to tell from all of those. Okay. So we'll just leave it at that. Okay, verse 12. ושמת שתי אבנים על כתפות האפוד. So you place the two stones. So these two stones were somehow engraved in settings of gold with the names of the 12 children of Israel. Place them on the two shoulders of the ephod. So right, so 6 on one stone, 6 on the other stone in the order of their birth. Avnei zikaron livnei Yisrael, and these are stones of remembrance. In other words, they're when the high priest walks around, he'll always be carrying around a remembrance or a token of the children of Israel. So avnei zikaron livnei Yisrael. Okay, so stones of remembrance for the children of Israel. Okay. And remember that Yom Teruah is called Zikaron Teruah. So there are many things that are called a Zikaron, a remembrance. Okay, kind of related in a certain sense to a sign, to an ot, different. So you have to keep an eye out for some of these different words like Zikaron. Okay, Yom Teruah is called Zikaron Teruah, a remembrance through noise making. Okay, that's what the rabbis call Rosh Hashanah. Here we have Avnei Zikaron Livnei Israel. So these are stones of remembrance or of reminding to the children of Israel. We know in Exodus, let's find it. So in Exodus 3:15, let's get that in the Hebrew. Shabbat Shalom, Ephraim and Yaakov. So in Exodus 3:15, Wayomer od Elohim el Moshe ko tomar el bnei Israel, Yehovah, Elohei avotechem, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, shir lahani alechem ze shmi leolam, uze zichri ledor vador, ledor dor. Okay, this is my remembrance related to the word zikaron. Not exactly the same. This is my mention or the way I'm to be remembered. Okay, but it's the same root. Okay, when God explains his explicit name, which may or may not be Yehovah, as I've mentioned now a number of times, I'm beginning to think it's not, and I'll give reasons for that in coming weeks. Zichri ledor vador. This is my remembrance. This is my mention from generation to generation. It's the same root, zichri, and here we have zikaron. Okay, so these two stones that are on the ephod are meant to be a remembrance, a zikaron livnei Israel, for the children of Israel. Unasa Aaron et shemotam livnei Yehovah al shtei ketefau lezikaron. And so Aaron, when he walks around, he's carrying names of the children of Israel as a remembrance, livnei Yehovah, before Yehovah, on his two shoulders, right? So wherever he goes, he's kind of remembering the children of Israel before Yehovah, okay, by having these two stones. Mishpatzot zahav, and you shall do mishpatzot is usually they translate as checker work. Here they translate as settings of gold. And you shall make a filigree. So what the heck is a filigree? I better look that up. It's so slow sometimes. Ornamental work of fine wire formed into delicate tracery. Filigree earrings. Filigree is a form of intricate metalwork used in jewelry and other small forms of metalwork. So this is a filigree. Gold filigree, intricate work from Portugal. So that's filigree. That's the way that Robert Alter translates mashpatzot, filigree. Usually it's translated, here it's translated as settings, vasita mishpatzot zahav, settings or checker work of gold. Again, I'm not enough of an expert in these things to know exactly what that means. I'd have to do more study. We're not going to get into it right now. Okay. And again, a lot of it's just guesswork anyway, right? As a number of people pointed out. Okay. Ushtei shasharot zahav tahor, and two chains. Shasheret is a chain of pure gold. Mir balot. So migbalot is understood here as braided. Everett Fox. Let's read his translation. Starting in 12, you are to place the two stones on the shoulder pieces of the ephod as stones of remembrance for the children of Israel. Aaron is to bear their names before the presence of Yud He Waw He on his two shoulders for remembrance. You're to make braids of gold. So he translates mishpatzot as braids. Here, Robert Alter, we said, translates it as filigree, fine work of gold, braids of gold, and two chains of pure gold, like lacings you're to make them, of rope making, or to put the rope chains on the braid. That's 28:14 according to Everett Fox. Here, according to Robert Alter, and two chains of pure gold intertwined shall make them in cord work, and you shall set the corded chains on the filigree. Yep. Okay. Shtei shasharot zahav tahor. So two, again, let's look here. We'll go with Robert Alter for a second. Two chains of pure gold. That's shtei shasharot zahav tahor. Now we have this word migbalot. So Robert Alter translates that as intertwined. Migbalot is intertwined. Braided, I think, is what Everett Fox translates it as. So pure gold lacings. He translates them as lacings. Intertwined lacings. Migbalot ta'aseotam. You shall make them aseh avot. Avot is chains or cords. Okay. That word is used in the case of Samson, where he's tied up. I believe it's exactly the same word. Let's check that out. That would be in Judges. So here we have the story of Samson. In Judges 15:13. And so Yomru lo le'sarcha ירדנו לתתך ביד פלישתים, ויאמר להם שמשון, הישבעו לי פן תפגעון בי אתם. ויאמרו לו לאמור לו, כי אסור נאסרך ונתנותך בידם, והמת לא נמיתך, יאסרו בשניים אבותים חדשים ויעלוהו מן הסלה. Okay, so here we have, let's see, what part of the story is that? This is when the Israelites come down to, wait a second. Okay, at any rate, we're not going to get into the whole Samson story right now, but let's just translate here, verses 12 and 13. They said to him, we've come down to tie you up, to deliver you into the hands of the Philistines. And Shimshon said to them, swear to me that you yourselves won't injure me, that you won't hurt me. And they said to him, we will not. But we will certainly we will only tie you up. The repetition here, asor ne'esarcha, means emphasis, but in this case it's kind of like it means only. We will only tie you up and give you into their hands of the Philistines. But we will certainly not kill you. And they bound him with two avotim, and here's that same word, cords or strings. Again, cords, I guess, is the best. Ropes. Avotim hadashim, they bound him with two new ropes. New ropes meaning they haven't been weakened, right? They're brand new, so they're very strong. And they brought him up from the rock, from the stone. Ad lechi flishtim. So he came to Lechi, place. That's a place name. Flishtim hariu likrato, and the flishtim basically rushed towards him. This is the word hariu. Hariu is the same word as yom truah, so shouting. So I guess the implication here is they ran towards him in a like in a loud, maybe they were even shouting or they were making a lot of noise as they ran toward him. Likrato watitzlach alav ruach Yehovah, and upon him fell or overcame him the spirit of Yehovah came upon him. Okay, and these ropes, these ropes, which were on his arms, on his hands, they became like pishta is flax, so they became like a flax, right? Flax was one of the materials that was used to make a cord. In other words, they were very weak, right? Flax, I guess was like as thin as a string, right? It wasn't used to make rope. It was used to make threads, right? Fishtim was one of the sources of threads, right? That's why we have shatnez, where you're not supposed to mix wool and linen, and so it's the same idea, right? So it became like flax threads upon him. Asher ba'aruba ish, which had been burned in the fire, v'yimasu asurav me'al yadov, and melted. And these things that were bound him melted as if they were flax threads in the fire. Is basically what it's saying. Okay, and he found a jawbone. Okay, lechi is a cheek or a jaw. Okay, of a hamor is a donkey. Okay, this is why the place is called Ba'ad Lechi. He came to this place called Lechi. Okay, named after this, I guess retroactively named after this incident. Or again, we know that names sometimes have multiple meanings. So maybe, these two things, maybe it was already named Lechi, and then this incident happened with the Lechi, with the jawbone of a donkey. So a recently died donkey. So Lechi would be feminine. And so the Triya would mean a fresh jawbone, basically, of a donkey. Or Ishlach Yado. So he took this jawbone of the fresh jawbone of the donkey, and he took it and he killed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of the donkey. Okay. ויאמר שמשון בלכי חמור, חמורתיים בלכי החמור הכיתי 1,000 איש. Okay, so then he gives this kind of like pitgam, this little statement. Yomer Shimshon, and Shimshon said, Belechi Chamor, with the jawbone of a donkey, Chamortayim. So this is now a play on words. Chamor is usually translated as piles or heaps or something like that. Let's just take a look. A heap. Chamoratayim. So I guess this would be translated, I've certainly piled them up in heaps, or I've made heaps. Belachi chamor, with the jawbone of a donkey, keti elafish, I've killed 1,000 men. Okay. And when he was done speaking, he cast away the jawbone from his hand. And he called the name of this place. He called this place Ramat Lechi, which would be the heights of the jawbone, or Jawbone Heights. Not a very nice name for a neighborhood, but that's what we call it, Jawbone Heights. So if you want to buy a nice house in Jawbone Heights, there you go. Okay. Okay, we'll stop with the Samson story right there. The point is that we have this word avotim, which is ropes or cords, and Samson was tied up in new ropes. And here we have that same word here with the ephod. Okay, so again, if we read this sentence here, so 2 chains of pure gold, migbalot, okay, migbalot, braided, or once again, Everett Fox translates that as lacings. Intertwined is how Robert Alter translates it. So braided, lacings, intertwined. Okay. Migbalot. I'm not really too familiar with this word, so we'd have to do an experiment. It only appears in one place, so nobody knows what it is probably. Compare. So, okay, maybe nobody knows what it is. I don't know. It's difficult to know the meanings of words that appear in one place or that appear only once. But at any rate, we'll say braided, okay? So braided gold work, or braided chains of pure gold. Ta'seotam, maseh avot, so the work of a cord or the work of a rope. So I guess it should look like a rope. When et shasharot ovot al hamishpatzot, and place the chains, the chains of rope, the rope like chains, al hamishpatzot, on the, again, this is the filigree or the settings or whatever it may be. Okay, so this, to really understand what's going on here, we'd need a lot of pictures. We'd need a lot of investigation. We're not going to get into it to that degree. It would be impossible. We'd have to be here for hours. Okay, but we can get an idea. So that's the ephod. So to make a long story short, the ephod is, once again, this garment that's depicted here in yellow. It's not yellow in real life, but it's depicted here in yellow to distinguish it from the other garments. It's kind of an outer vest or an outer small robe, tunic, maybe you could say. It has 2 stones, one on each shoulder. Each stone contains 6 of the names of the children of Israel, for a total of 12 names of the children of Israel. It has cords made of gold, or braided cords made of gold. And one second. נושא חרש אבן פיתוחי חותם ותפתח את שתי אבנים, השמות בני ישראל מסובות, משפצות זהב תעשה אותם, שמת את שתי אבנים, yeah, so that's that, okay? And we could explore it more, but we're gonna move on to the breastplate. This is the choshen, also called here the choshen mishpat, the breastplate of judgment, okay? Because apparently it was used for I won't say divination, but for inquiring of Yahweh. Maybe some people think as kind of a lottery, right, where you would ask a question and one of the tribe's names would appear, somehow light up, or other people say you pick the it was a sack where you put these stones with the names of the 12 tribes in it, and you pick one out, and that's the tribe that was chosen. At any rate, let's try to translate here. Asita choshen mishpat. So you shall make a breastplate. No one really knows again where the choshen is. If we read Robert Alter, what he said earlier, I think he mentions that. That's not clear what it is. Yeah, though the present translation assumes that breastplate is still plausible for the Hebrew choshen, etymology uncertain. Others contend it is a smaller breast piece or even a pouch. Okay, so nobody knows exactly what it is, but we're going to go with breastplate. So the breastplate of judgment. The judgment, mishpat, function of the breastplate is executed through the Urim and Tumim, verse 30, that are set in it. Because the purpose of this device is oracular, some prefer to render mishpat as decision, although there is evidence elsewhere that the Urim and Tumim were often used to determine who is guilty of a particular trespass. Okay, so let's go on here. We'll go for about another 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm going to end the study for today, so maybe we'll try to get through the breast piece. Alrighty. מעשה חושב כמעשה אפוד תעשנו. So it's a מעשה חושב, so it's the work of an artisan, כמעשה אפוד, as the work of the ephod. Ta'asenu, you shall make it. So meaning, what does it mean? Like the work of the ephod? It means made of zahav, tchelet, argaman, torat shani, shesh mashzar, taseoto. Okay, so it's going to be made of gold, of tchelet, the sky blue, argaman, purple, torat shani, worm scarlet, shesh, shesh, which we said is we're translating as fine linen. Why is this not plugged in correctly? 1 second. There we go. Fine linen, which is twisted. So twisted fine linen or twisted bisus, bissel threads of muscles. We're not 100% sure. Taseoto. Okay, verse 16. Rabua ye kafur. Zeret arko, zeret rochbo. Okay. So it should be okay, raboye kafur. So it should be basically a square, okay, like a zeret arkov, zeret rochbo. It should be raboye kafur. So literally, it should be a squared, double squared, or a square. Basically, is what it's trying to say. Okay, let's get a translation here. This is verse 16. Square, it is to be doubled over. A span its length and its span its width. So what is this zeret? So a zeret is also a measurement. I believe a zeret is I think they usually translate as a hand width or hand breadth. Let's take a look. Etymology dubious. Also to measure off span of measurement elsewhere in the actual size span. Yeah, so the distance between the ends of the thumb and little finger on the spread hand equals half a cubit. See, Amah and references. So let's take a look at that. Let's try to get this measured down. See if we can find a zeret. Get an idea of how large it was. That is Edit. Biblical. There we go. Biblical. Measure. So one span is a zeret, 3 palms tfachim, cubit is an amma, 2 span. Okay, here we go. We're not interested in Talmudic units of measurement, but we are interested in biblical units of measurement. So I'm sorry. So a tefach is a handbreadth. A span or a zeret is 3 palms. Okay. So let's see here. Over here. So there's the perfect diagram, I suppose. Tip of the thumb to the tip of the little finger. In ancient times, a span was considered to be half a cubit. So if we're talking about the great span here, that's number 4. Yeah, that's true. So I guess maybe it was just meant to be. I don't know. It doesn't say. It's a good question. Or maybe there was a standard measurement that was based on someone's hand originally. Okay. So there we go. Arabic usage, blah, blah, blah. Size of the span, English, Chinese, Arabic, Slavic, Portuguese usage. Okay. Mongolian usage. All right. So at any rate, it would seem that the zerets, we're looking for the biblical usage, obviously. So it's a span. I'm not sure which span. I'm assuming it means that this great span that they show here. Okay, number 4. Okay, and it is half a cubic. Cubic. No, not half a cubic. Half is cubit. So the span, Hebrew zeretz. Well, that's also that's all extra biblical, but let's see if we can find some kind of proof in the Tanakh, Talmud. Zeret, ancient Hebrew. The Zeret, ancient or Zeret was a unit of length or distance in the ancient Hebrew measurement system. Whoa, what's going on here? Oh, shoot. Let me get rid of this. I guess. All right, we'll go back here. Okay. Again, this would take full investigation. We're not going to do it, but let's assume it's this handbreadth or span, and let's assume that's about half of an alma. Okay, so an alma is about 1.5 feet. So zeret would be about 0.75 feet. Okay, 0.75 feet. A foot is 12 inches. 3/4 of a foot would therefore be 9 inches. So we're going to say approximately 9 inches. So 9 inches its length, and 9 inches its width. Okay. So can everybody still hear and see me? Because I had some weird pop-up come. Everybody hear me? Sure. Please let me know that you can still hear and see me or see the screen. I'll wait for an answer. I'll assume it's the case, or I can just check YouTube for a second. Let me do that. It's kind of stuck. Let's just make sure here. Kind of stuck. Okay, we're good. Okay. Okay, good to go. Okay, great. Alrighty, so that is a zeret. So about 9 inches, we're going to say its width, 9 inches in width, 9 inches in height. You can see a picture of it right here. Okay, that's this thing over here. These 12 stones. Okay, that are attached to the ephod. That is the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of judgment or the breastplate of decision. Okay, verse 17. Meletabo miluat even, and you shall fill it or set it with stone settings. Okay. Arba'a turim even tur. Okay, so now we have 4 rows. So there are going to be 4 rows. Again, as we see here in the picture, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Each row is going to have 3 types of stone. So, even, tur. And now we have different types of stone mentioned. So the first row is going to have odem, pitda, u bareket. That's the first row. Second row is going to have nofech, sapir, and yahalom. Third row is going to have leshem, shivo, and ahlama. And the fourth row is going to have darshish, shoham, and yashfe. Meshubatzim, zahav, iu, bemiluatam. And they're going to be set into, or checkered gold, set in gold. They shall be in their settings. Okay. So we have all these different types of stones, basically, right? So should we add over here? No, this is not Jethro. This is tabernacle materials. Let's grab that. Thanks. Better. So we could add this to the tabernacle materials. Okay. Let's do that. It's not tabernacle. Well, it's related to the tabernacle, so we'll leave it as tabernacle materials. So yeah, so we have eventual odem. So we have odem. How are we going to do this? Maybe I won't bother to translate them right now. I'll just add them. So we have odem. Odem. The next one we have is pitda. The next one we have is bareket. The next one we have, and that's the first row, right? So let's add this like this. So this is going to be, where are we? We're in Exodus 28, 17. Exodus 28, 17. Okay. Translation we'll get in a second. So this is going to be first row of breastplate. Breastplate of judgment. Okay. So is this. So is this. So is this. So we'll get back to translations in a second. And then we have the second row. Torah Sheni, Nofech, Sapir via Halom. Maybe I can grab all of these together. Save a little time. So we have Nofech. Oops. Nofech. Sapir. And then we have Yahalom. In modern Hebrew, Yahalom is a diamond. Yahalom. So this is Exodus 28:18. Okay, this is the second row. Okay, now we have in Exodus 28:19, the third row, that's going to be Leshem, Shivo, and Lama. Let's grab those. Oops. Get rid of the vav there. Lama. This is the third row. This is Exodus 28:19. And this is the third row. A little bit, so do that. Uh-huh. There we go. Down a little bit more. Okay. So this is the third row. And then we have in Exodus 28:20, the fourth row. And that's going to be Tarshish, Shoham, and Yashfeh. Shish, Shoham, Yashfeh. Oops. Okay, this is the fourth row of the breastplate of judgment. This is Exodus 28:20. So those are the 12 stones. Once again, we have Odem, Pita, Bareket, Nofech, Sapir, Yahalom, Leshem, Shivo, Achlama, Tarshish, Shoham, and Yashfeh. So let's get some translations here. We'll go with Robert Alter just for the heck of it. So we're starting in 28:17, and just make sure that does end in 28:20. Yes, it does. So 28:17. And I'm not going to look up all the possibilities. I'm just going to take whatever this translation says. Okay. What's the stone? So ruby, topaz, and malachite are the first three. So here. So this is going to be ruby, topaz, Malachite. Okay, I'm not even going to look them up or look at pictures of them. So, what is going on here? Here. A little bit larger. There we go. Okay. Next, we have Nofech, Sapir, and Yahalom. In modern Hebrew, Yahalom is diamond. Let's see how it's translated here. Turquoise, sapphire, and amethyst. And here, Everett Fox translates it as 17. Ruby, sapphire, and hard onyx. So it just goes to show there's no consensus on what these substances were. Okay. So turquoise. Sapphire. Let's see what's going on. Okay. Sapphire. Oh, shoot. Amethyst. That's the second row. Okay, then third row, Exodus 28:19. We have Leshem, Shivo, and Achlama, translated here as jacinth, agate, and crystal. Jacinth, I wonder if that's the same as jacinto. Is it? Huh, no kidding. Okay, so that's jacinth. Then we have agate. Really? Like the hyacinth? No kidding. In what way? Crystal. Uh-huh. Interesting. All right. So, what? What's the relation between jacinth and hyacinth? Same color, I guess. Okay. Finally, we have Tarshish, Shoham, and Yashfeh. That's Exodus 28:20. Tarshish, Shoham, and Yashfeh. Translation: beryl, carnelian, and jasper. So let's do that. Beryl, same name as a charlatan Jewish historian Beryl Wine. Maybe his Hebrew name is Tarshish. I have no idea. Who's just a rabbinical propagandist who masquerades as an historian. Carnelian. And jasper. And there we go. Okay. So these are the 12 stones. Once again, oops. They are Odem, Pitda, Bareket, Nofech, Sapir. Sapir is a very common Hebrew name. Yahalom means diamond in modern Hebrew. Leshem is Also, I've heard that name in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, Shavo, Achlama Tarshish. I used to know someone whose name is Tarshish. Their last name actually Shoham. I have a friend who just married a girl named Shoham. Yashves. So some of these words are used in modern Hebrew as names. Okay. Well, there we go. We did add it to our list of substances. Okay, tabernacle materials. Just 18 as it should be. And there we go. At least we're keeping a good list here. Okay. So we have gold, silver, bronze, sky blue. I'll read in Hebrew: Zahav, gold, kesef, silver, nahoshet, bronze, tchelet, sky blue, argaman, purple, tolaat shani. There should be no vav there. It should be without a vav. Tolaat shani, worm scarlet, shish, fine linen, izim, goat hair, orot elim, ram skins, tahashim, dolphin perhaps, or God knows. Shittim, acacia, shemen, olive oil, and also shemen zayit we saw earlier. Bisamim is spices, shoham, onyx. So shoham was already mentioned in. So what was the context in Exodus 25 for shoham? Exodus 25:6. So it's interesting. Yeah, so this was a reference to the ephod and the choshen. Okay, so we know that. Okay, so the avnei shoham is relating to the ephod, right? The ephod had two stones, one on each shoulder, made of shoham. It said, and the avnei miluim, the setting stones, the stones that will be set, is related to the choshen. These are the 12 types that we said right now. Okay, and we're seeing here that in the ephod, right? We saw earlier that in the ephod that we had the two stones, one on each shoulder, and it said explicitly that that was made from shoham, right? Let's just find that for a second. Right here. That's in Exodus 28:9, right? This is talking about the two stones, one on each shoulder. Each one has 6 names, 6 of the 12 names of the children of Israel. So the shoham stone that we saw is relating to the ephod, but also in the breastplate we also have a shoham. Okay. In the 4th row. So shoham actually would represent Yosef. Oh, that's interesting now. So check this out. If everything is done in order of birth, right, from the top to the bottom, right, and we can assume that the order in which the stones are mentioned, we said the 12 stones, no, I'm sorry. We said the 2 stones that are on the shoulder are done in the order. But let's assume for a second that the 12 stones here are also done in the order of birth. If you look at a picture here, well, we can't see it right here. But I'm going to assume for a second that that's the case, okay? And if that's the case, then we can relate each, and maybe it says later exactly which one has which name. But shoham is the 11th stone. The 11th child born to Yaakov was who? Who was the 11th child born to Yaakov? Second to last child born to Yaakov was Joseph. Okay? So shoham represents Joseph. Joseph was the favorite child of Yaakov, and shoham is the same stone that is put on the shoulders. Right? Isn't that interesting? Okay. Get rid of that. So that's interesting. Okay. Well, there you have it. So that was Exodus 28:20. We'll go down to the bottom of the breastplate, and then I think we'll probably stop. Maybe I'll just read through to the end of the parsha. I'm not sure yet. Okay, verse 21. So basically, the 12 names of the children of Israel are going to be written, or going to be engraved. So you're going to write the 12 names on the 12 stones. And the implication would be in order. Wasita al hachoshen I'm sorry. Shar shot gavlut maaseh avot zahav tahor. So on the breastplate, you're supposed to again do these twisted chains of the work of a rope, the work of a pure gold rope. So the same thing like was on the ephod. Okay. Verse 23, Vasita ala choshen shtei tabaot zahav. So there are going to be 2 rings of gold on the choshen or attached to the choshen. V'natata al shtei tabaot al shnei tzot achoshen. So now there are going to be these 2 rings of gold on the 2 ends of the breastplate. V'natata et shtei ovot zahav al shtei hatabaot al tzot achoshen. And then there should be these gold rope shapes on the ends of the choshen, I guess running through these 2 rings. But shtei ktzot shtei ha'ovot ha'avotot titen al shtei hamishpatzot v'natata al kitfot ha'ephod el mul panav. It's a bit technical. We're gonna it's gonna take too much time to get into all the details there. Okay. ועשית שתי טבעות זהב ושמת אותם על 2 קצות החושן על שפתו אשר אל עבר האפוד ביתה, ועשית 2 טבעות זהב, נתת אותם על 2 כתפות האפוד, מלמטה ממול פניו לעומת מחרפתו ממעל לחשב האפוד. Okay, so basically from what I understood there, so the breastplate is being connected. So we have rings, gold rings. Let's see if we can see a picture here. Oops, no, we can't. But these gold rings are going to be connecting the breastplate to the ephod. I think there are 2 of them. Okay. Verse 28. V'yirksu et hachoshen mitabotav el tabot ha'ephod. So you connect the rings of the choshen, of the breastplate, to the rings of the ephod, the betil techelet with a techelet string, right? The same kind of thing we're supposed to wear on our tzitzit. Yot al cheshev ha'ephod, velo yizach ha'choshen me'al ha'ephod. So the reason for this is lo yizach ha'choshen me'al ha'ephod, so it does not become loose, okay? From the ephod. So the choshen is always connected to the ephod. ונשא אהרון את שמות בני ישראל וחושן המשפט על ליבו בבואו אל הקודש. So, and then Aaron, oh my God, it's already late. I'm going to end right after the sentence. So Aaron is to carry the names of the children of Israel on the choshen hamishpat, on the breastplate of judgment, when he goes into the holy place, the lezikaron lifnei Yehovah tamid, as a remembrance before Yehovah, as always. What? Yeah. So just as the 2 stones on the ephod are meant to be a remembrance, so is this. So are the 12 stones on the choshen hamishpat, on the breastplate of judgment, also meant to be a remembrance. Verse 30, v'natata el choshen hamishpat et ha'urim va'et ha'tumim. And on this choshen hamishpat, you're to put the urim and the tumim, which nobody really knows exactly what they are. Are they the 12 stones? Are they something else? So the most common, well, let's see what Robert Alter has to say about the urim and the tumim. The most common explanation is that one of the stones would light up or somehow make itself known, and that the urim and tumim are those 12 stones. But let's see what. So 29. So let's read a couple comments here. So 17 through 20. For all the scholarly recourse to conjectured etymologies and comparative philology, it is virtually impossible to determine precisely what precious stones are referred to in this list of 12 terms. We can do little more than revel in the gorgeousness of the words, which is surely part of the intended response of the ancient audience. So nobody has any idea what the stones are. According to the names of Israel's sons, the stones offer a reduplication, reinforcing the ritual efficacy of the device of incising the names of the 12 tribes. In the first instance, 6 names were listed on each of 2 stones. Now every tribe has its own precious stone. Over its heart, that's in verse 29. So Menaseh Aaron et Shemot Bnei Israel b'choshen hamishpat al libo. Right, so he's kind of saying this double meaning here. It really means over his chest, but also on his heart. It means they should be on his heart, right? Just like these words should be upon your heart and upon your upon your hand and upon your heart. Okay, so where were we? So yeah, that's a good point that he's making there. But the rest, blah, 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 the Urim and the Tumim. The precise character of this oracular device is eluded identification. Nobody knows what the Urim and the Tumim really are. One common conjecture is that they were two stones with different letters or words engraved on them. But unless someone actually digs up a pair, there's no way of proving this conjecture. Traditional interpretation associates the two words with roots that mean light and perfection. By the way, it is also on the coat of arms of Yale University. For those who don't know, that's an interesting side note. So this is the emblem of Yale University, and you can see right on the emblem of Yale University, which was founded in the year 1701. Okay, so one of the oldest universities in the United States, as I'm sure everybody knows. You see here in Hebrew, Urim wa Tumim, Urim wa Tumim, and then you have an appropriate or an approximate, an attempted translation into Latin, lux et veritas. So Urim is from the word, it's believed is from the word or. Urim means lights. Lux is light. That's where we get the word light from, right? Or in let's say Spanish, it's what is light in Spanish again? Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. They put it separately. No, I think maybe. Yeah.
Does it have some sort of secret significance that they...
I don't think it does. I think it probably just couldn't fit. So lux. So in Spanish it's luz. In Portuguese, what's light again? Luz. Yeah, luz in Portuguese. So that's the urim. Or is light, right? Vayhi or, right? So we already see that word in Genesis chapter 1. And then you have tumim. Tumim is usually understood as somehow truth. Okay. Tam means perfect or simple or complete or truthful or innocent, simple, straightforward. So tumim is translated as truth. So light and truth. And there you have veritas, right? That is truth in Latin, just like you would say in English. It's verity or verified. Yeah, so that's the way they understood the Urim and the Tumim, is light and truth. So on the emblem of Yale University, you have in Hebrew Urim and Tumim. Okay, if only Yale University were still a university where they had any connection whatsoever to God, instead of basically just the direct opposite. At any rate, that's an interesting point there. And we were reading Robert Alter regarding the Urim and the Tumim, the precise character. We read that already. Well, light and truth. But if they are opposites, they could be linked etymologically with terms suggesting curse and innocence. Like or, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Never thought of that before. That's good. Yeah. So or is to be cursed, or I will be cursed. Okay. And innocence. It's probably not coincidental that these two words begin respectively with the first and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Never realized that either. Good point. In any case, most of the references to the Urim and Tumim in narrative passages invite the inference that the device generated a binary response to whatever question was posed: yes or no, guilty or innocent. We have no idea what the Urim and Tumim are, but there's something, and they answer questions somehow or another. Okay. So on this Choshen Mishpat is also the Urim and the Tumim, whatever they are they the 12 stones? Are they something else? Who knows? And it shall be upon the heart of Aaron as he goes before Yehovah, and asa Aaron et mishpat b'nei, judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart, and maybe this is referring to decisions made by the Urim and Tumim. For the children of Israel, Ali Bot, on his heart, Lifnei Yoah, Tamid, before Yoah, always. Okay? And we're going to stop here, even though we have a lot more to do. Wow, a lot more to do. We're supposed to be going up to 30. Or was it again? 30-10, but that's not going to happen. I'm going to end the study here. It's already pretty late. I hope you've enjoyed the study. It's very interesting to me. And I wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov, depending on where you are. And Bizrat Yoah, we will see you again next week. Okay. Shabbat Shalom.